Stafford. 8 seconds left. Loading up near side Nakua. Is he out of bounds?
Oh, my God.
3 seconds.
He's
We're going to run the clock. That's going to do it. The Seahawks soar to Super Bowl 60.
Oh boy, that's what it sounded like yesterday as the Seattle Seahawks advanced to the Super Bowl alongside Tanner Hendrickson and Alex Ferrario. I'm Brandon Kiley. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. It's 11:04. Your time check brought to you by Clarkson Jewelers, an officially licensed Rolex jeweler. Alex and I both broadcasting from home today. Did not want to get out in the elements. My son is also home today, so if you hear hockey banging in the background, that is what it is from. I apologize in advance. Alex is at home. He may or may not be on with us in the first segment at some point today. T-Bone back in the studios with us here today on BK and Ferrario, holding things down, and T-Bone's playing hurt. His squad had every opportunity yesterday to come away with a victory and reach the Super Bowl against a team that I think has basically no shot of winning the Super Bowl in the New England Patriots. And then Matt Stafford became the first quarterback in NFL history to throw for 350 or more yards, 3 or more touchdowns, have 0 turnovers, and lose. First player to ever do so. T-Bone, how you feeling today, man?
Not great, because this feels almost like the last ride, kind of, where I feel like Stafford may not be back next year. He was ho-hum on his future with the Rams, and they played very well if it wasn't for a muff punt. If it wasn't for that muff punt, they're not playing on the back foot for the rest of that football game from that point on. They should have won that football game yesterday, right? They picked apart the best strength of probably any team left in the playoffs in the Seahawks with that defense. And you mentioned Stafford goes for 374, 3 touchdowns, looked awesome in that football game. And because of their stupid special teams, they couldn't freaking pull this off against the Seattle Seahawks, who they probably should have swept the season series against. They had every opportunity in the final game of the regular season, so this would be a home game. They didn't have to go to the 12th man. They didn't take care of business. Special teams screws everything up in this one, and Sam freaking Darnold looked like a stud for once, which was shocking to me, and he picked apart the Rams defense. I'm not feeling good, BK. I'm not feeling good.
It is, by the way, Alex lost internet, so he might not be off for a little while. We'll do what we can here. This weekend, to me, it felt different than many other championship weekends because this was all about the biggest weakness, the biggest flaw being exposed. Like, for the Denver Broncos, it became very clear, and I think Mike Vrabel managed the game perfectly because it became clear in the second half, they can't move the football. Their drives, 3 plays, 6 yards punt, 3 plays, 3 yards punt, 6 plays, 17 yards, punt, 4 plays, 5 yards, missed field goal, 2 plays, 1 yard, interception. They couldn't move the football. Like, everybody going in said, oh man, I don't know that you can win a playoff game with Jarrett Stidham, especially with the way that the Patriots defense has been playing in this postseason. And everybody that felt that way was proven correct. I think the only person in America that honestly believed the Broncos would move the football with any level of consistency was Sean Payton. He apparently told the sideline reporter, we're going to win this football game earlier in the week. They very much did not. They had no chance. Their quarterback was a huge liability. And with the game on the line, he tried to test one of the best cornerbacks in the NFL with a go ball to Marvin Mims. That was his choice. Meanwhile, as T-Bone mentioned, in the Rams-Seahawks game, the Rams offense was awesome. The Seahawks offense was great against a liability in that Rams defense. But what ultimately lost them that game was their special teams. If you don't fumble that punt, I think there's a pretty good chance that the Rams ultimately go on to win the game. They didn't field it. They fumbled it. And ultimately, the Seahawks are able to come out on top. And that was the swing that they needed. The Rams were just never able to ultimately catch up. So this weekend, to me, was all about the flaws being exposed, more so than any one individual unit taking over and saying, like, we are winning this game. It was about something losing it for the other team.
And it feels like that's kind of been the theme of the playoffs, no? I mean, every team, we talked about this going in because it was such a wide open field and tough to predict who was going to come out on top in the AFC and NFC. every team had a flaw. It's a matter of who could expose it the best, right? And in the case of the Rams, they exposed it themselves with special teams. But you're right with the Broncos. I mean, they were going to put the ball in the hand of Jarrett Stidham, which maybe works out if it's not a blizzard in the second half. And you know what you need in the second half when the snow's coming down? A running game, the thing that the Broncos never had really all year, and felt like that was going to be a problem for them. And you saw that was the reason the Patriots were able to win that football game. Their running backs were okay, but Drake May made 3 really good runs with his legs towards the end of that football game to put them over the top. I don't know that the Patriots are that great a football team, as we've talked about all season long. They've got one of the easiest paths that you can remember probably getting to a Super Bowl. But you know what? They took advantage of their schedule. They're there. I think Seattle's going to kill them when they get to the Super Bowl with that defense. But yeah, I think it just came down to who could expose the other team's flaws more than anybody else. And for the Seahawks, they were able to do it. Patriots were able to do it. And that's been really the theme of the NFL playoffs this season.
And what we get is one of the most shocking Super Bowls that we have ever seen. And listen, if I had told you at the beginning of the playoffs, the Patriots, who were the 2 seed in the AFC, will take on the Seahawks, who are the 1 seed in the NFC, I don't think anybody would have been overly surprised by that. But at the beginning of the regular season this year, the Patriots were 80-1 to win the Super Bowl. The Seahawks were 60-1 to win the Super Bowl. This would have required Sam Darnold to win multiple playoff games against that NFC field to get to the Super Bowl. And it would have required a huge jump from a Patriots team that won 4 games each of the past 2 seasons. And even me, who was talking all offseason, T-Bone, about how much I thought that the Patriots would be able to take some level of jump, I didn't think this was possible. I thought maybe you win 10 games, you get to the playoffs, you're a wild card team, you feel good about yourself heading into 2026, and you live to fight another day, right? Like that would be the story of the 2025 Patriots. But instead, they are well ahead of schedule. The AFC broke right around them. And I know a lot of people are going to be saying something to the effect of, man, look at this path. They went up against a backup quarterback in the Broncos. They went up against a broken Texans offense. And that first game, like, come on, they had no chance. So, like, the path was not the most difficult thing in the world, but they took advantage of it. They did what they needed to do. Meanwhile, you look at some of these other teams, that they weren't able to do it. Everybody in the AFC had an easier path than you would typically expect. Like, the bleeping Bills just had to beat the Broncos, who I just saw are not a perfect football team, and they couldn't do it. They couldn't get stops. So I'm not going to criticize the Patriots for taking advantage of the path that was in front of them. I'm just going to marvel at the fact that we got 2 teams that I thought had no shot of reaching the Super Bowl ultimately in the biggest game of sports. And they did so, and combined, it is the longest odds to reach a Super Bowl since at least 1989, based upon what they were at Vegas-wise in terms of their Vegas odds going into the regular season, T-Bone.
Yeah, to the Patriots' point there, like I was with you. I thought maybe you see them take a jump. I thought they'd be kind of like what we saw from the Bears, right? Where the Bears end up making the jump. Maybe they surprise you and they win the division, which they ultimately did. But then they're probably out in the playoffs, right? They run into somebody who's just able to take advantage of a second-year quarterback. They're able to take advantage of the flaws with that Patriots roster. And no one ended up running into that problem, right? Like, you're right about this AFC. This is probably the weakest team to come out of the AFC that I can think of in some time, considering you've had, like, Brady in the past, Mahomes in the past. Like, this is different, right? Maybe the Bengals, you could argue, were a team that was kind of weak, especially on the defensive side of the ball. They still had Joe Burrow, man. Like, that was a pretty special team. And then you think back to, like, what the Seahawks were able to do. Think back to what their offseason was, where they trade DK Metcalf to the Pittsburgh Steelers. They move on from Tyler Lockett. They move on from Geno Smith, and the replacement answer was, okay, we're going to turn to JSN, which at the time I thought, okay, I'm not sure he's ready to be a true number 1. Proved us all wrong there. And then you look at it and they say, we're going to go with Sam Darnold as our quarterback, who I just saw with Minnesota, which we called a flaw all season long. We said, boy, Darnold is not as good as he has appeared on tape. And, of course, the Rams took advantage of him last year. This year, it's the opposite effect, right? Darnold was just as good as he has appeared on tape this season, and he was able to make all the right plays that were necessary and slowly and methodically picked apart the L.A. Rams. Like, it was impressive to see what they were able to do, and it's unbelievable that this is the Super Bowl that we have. We thought the Rams were going to be the one that was the clear-cut, obvious favorite, going to get to the Super Bowl, till about 5 weeks ago when they started to show major flaws, and then it became anyone's field.
Yeah, and the Rams, what we've seen really for the last 6 weeks or so is what they were, you know?
Yeah.
a good offense, but a flawed offense, not as great as it was early in the season, and then a defense that just couldn't get stops. And T-Bone texted us yesterday, I can't wait for Shula to get a job elsewhere.
Oh, now he's not
Careful
going
what
to.
you wish for, buddy. Careful what you wish for as well. I would say that defense, I think what he got early in the season was more about scheme, and what they were late in the season was a reminder of how much room they still have to go, how far they still have to go with that defensive personnel. They're just not particularly talented on that side of the football. We're going to spend a lot of time over the next couple of weeks talking about both the Seahawks and the Patriots. The Broncos, like, man, if you're a Broncos fan today listening to us here on the show, I don't think there's any reason to feel bad about that effort. Defense was awesome. They did everything they needed to do. Offense just didn't have enough with Stidham as your starting quarterback, and you hope maybe Bo Nix is able to get you over the top next year. Defense is not particularly sticky, and it could go poorly from here, but I don't think that that's a game that you necessarily feel bad about if you're a Broncos fan. I think differently about the Rams, man. This might have been their best last shot with this core. Puka Nacua is about to become extremely expensive sooner rather than later. Devontae Adams, I have no idea if he's going to be able to replicate this season next year. Matt Stafford, I don't even know if he's going to be back. And that defense, as we saw late in the season, man, there are a lot of moves that you need to make in order to get that thing back on track. They do have some draft capital, which will help them, but this might have been their best shot to secure that second Super Bowl of the Sean McVay era, and they ultimately weren't able to do it. That's the one that I think we'll look back on, 3, 5, 10 years from now and say, man, they missed a really good opportunity there to take advantage of their window one more time.
It's why I said to me I think we had the conversation before the playoffs, who's the team that was like the Lions, right? That was under the most pressure from a year ago to get to the Super Bowl. And it's why I said the Rams, because you had Stafford that was aging out. He's potentially retiring, if not at the end of this year, any time now at this point. And he's probably not going to put together another year like he just did, like you said. Puka's going to get expensive. You've got Devontae. Like, I don't know if he can put this together again. He really showed signs of his age in the playoffs, I think. Yeah, and defensively, like, they've got too many problems. It's great they've got 2 first-round picks. I don't think you're trading up for like a quarterback though in this draft. Fernando Mendoza is like the only guy that I look at, and he's going number 1 overall. So I don't know what the future holds for the LA Rams, but to me, they were the team that had the most pressure, and they weren't able to take advantage of it.
Matt Stafford, 3 playoff losses with the Rams, 370 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks. 325, 2 touchdowns, no picks. 375, 3 touchdowns, no picks. Other quarterbacks with at least 320 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks in the playoffs are 34-11. He has lost 1 out of every 4 games.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's tough.
It's not what you want if you're a Rams fan and you see this kind of performance from Matt Stafford. And yet the Seahawks able to get it done. Sam Darnold proves a fool out of me. I did not think he had that kind. If you told me before the game, hey, the Seahawks are going to have to score 30 in order to win, can they do it? No chance in hell. Yeah. Absolutely not. Would not have predicted that for the Seahawks. I did predict them to win on Friday. I didn't think they would be able to win like that. I thought it would be a much lower scoring game. Ultimately, they're able to get it done, in full credit to Sam Darnold, who becomes the first quarterback from his draft class to reach the Super Bowl. His class includes Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson.
Wow.
Alongside Tanner Hendrickson and eventually Alex Ferrario, I'm Brandon Kiley. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Hope all of you guys were able to stay safe over the weekend. I know many of you are probably working from home as well. So if you want to check us out on YouTube, you can put that up on your TV at home as well. If you got the kiddos with you, youtube.com/101 ESPN STL is the place to go. You can always get involved as well via the text line at 314-399-9646. That is the Air Comfort Service text line. In 15 minutes, the Rams did not make it a good weekend for Tanner Hendrickson. However, Illinois did. We'll talk about their star freshman who's playing his way into potentially at least lottery pick conversations, as Keaton Wagler was able to push the Illini over the top over this weekend. We'll talk about his performance coming up in 15 minutes. But next, Jordan Kyrou raising his game at the exact right time. What does it mean for the Blues? We'll talk about it next here on 101 ESPN.
One more Blues talk. Check out the last ESPN has your shot to score tickets to see Leonard Skinner and Foreigner August 6th at Hollywood Casino Amphitheater. Find all the ticket info and your chance to win free tickets to Leonard Skinner and Foreigner right now at 101ESPN.com or on the 101 app powered by Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers. Giving you the picture, the real big St. Louis sports picture. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
Over the line, Mayu on the backhand. Kyrou with speed. Wraparound score! Kemper never moved. Kyrou tucked it home. Blues lead 3-2. Kyrou to Falk. Slack the rebound. Kyrou one times the rebound in. Tie game 4-4.
Chris Kerber on the call for your home of the Blues 101 ESPN this weekend as Jordan Kyrou puts two home in the 5-4 shootout loss against the LA Kings over the weekend. Alongside Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. Alex making his way back to the studio right now as his internet went down moments before we ultimately went on the air. Jordan Kyrou's playing his best hockey at exactly the right time if you're a Blues fan who's hoping for them to trade him. Jordan Kyrou in his last 7 games has 3 goals, 7 points, and is a +4 on the ice. He was arguably the best player on the ice against the LA Kings. He was back-checking. He looked fast. He was weaponizing his greatest skill, which is his speed. He was amazing. And this is the kind of player that we've seen him be at times in the past. The frustration with Kyrou was always, why can't that be more consistent? Why can't he give you some level of effort defensively on a night-in, night-out basis? Because when he does, he creates offense through his defense. I don't need him to be one of the better defenders in the league. I don't think that's ever likely from Jordan Kyrou. But if you can convert some of those takeaways into offense, that's the way that you're able to raise your game just a bit. I was highly impressed with him. I don't know what it means in the big picture, T-Bone. I don't think it really changes anybody's opinion on Jordan Kyrou. But what did you make of his performance over the weekend and really the high level of play we've seen from Kyrou now for the last 5 to 10 games?
Yeah, I don't know how much it really means for the Blues for this season, but I do think it is something that is helpful for them to, at least if they are going to consider a trade of him in the offseason, to showcase him getting back to his game, right? And you can potentially, who knows, maybe it was the injury that had to deal with this for what his slow play had kind of looked like before this 7-game stretch that we have seen. But I'm just glad to see that he's back to his game. I mean, you mentioned it. He's starting to utilize his speed again. He's making himself a difference maker in these games. He doesn't have to be great defensively. We've talked about that in the past, as you brought up. If he's just average defensively, you can get away with that, especially when you start to play his style of hockey, which is as a goal scorer. And he's starting to impact the power play as well. Of those 7 points in the last 7 games, 4 of those points have come on the power play. So I've been very impressed by what he has been able to do here of late. And he finally looks like he's just kind of gotten back into playing what is his style. It felt like most of the season he's been lost, and I don't know why that is. But now you're starting to see this is what Kyrou looks like when he's at his best.
T-Bone, do we have this audio from Elliot Friedman?
Yes, sir.
The 32 Thoughts podcast. All right, so Elliot Friedman talked recently, I think this was actually on Sportsnet, about the current trade market, the landscape for the Blues, and what they're hoping to get accomplished. Go ahead and take a listen.
You mentioned the St. Louis one. St. Louis is definitely, and everybody talks about who's talking. The Blues are a team, but the prices are huge for those guys, all that you've mentioned. That, you know, you look at what Anderson just got traded for, and I think the Blues are kind of looking at something like that with Falk, who's an older player with a bit of term. So it's tough to make a deal with them, even though they are willing. I think one of the things that's going on right now, it's kind of funny, is that some teams want to make trades before the Olympic break, but there's other teams who are saying, why would I want to pay a guy a few $100,000 to lie on a beach? I'd rather make the trade after the Olympic break. So there's some of that going around too.
That's how I would personally view this. It's like, hey, let me see what these guys look like after a 3-week layoff to find out who actually put in the work during that break to see, like, hey, what kind of a player am I really expecting to get? I wouldn't be planning to make trades over the next week or so prior to this Olympic shutdown, but that's just my personal view on the matter. I think the Blues should be asking for a lot for all these guys, especially right now. There's no urgency to get anything done. If you're in Doug Armstrong's shoes, hey, man, I've got a week right now to get this stuff done. I've got a week after we come back from the break to get something done. And we could talk. We can't technically make any moves, but I can talk with all these GMs for the 3 weeks while the Olympics are taking place. So I see no real urgency to drop any of these prices. They should be asking for the moon because I have to imagine, T-Bone, there are not very many teams right now that feel as though they're completely out of it, which means the sellers are going to be limited across the league.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you, and it's because of the fact that there are, 4 sellers, I think, at this point you could really define, and that there is so many teams in it right now. I think if you're Army, yeah, you're asking for the moon. I think you're holding up that high price tag, and as we've seen in the past, once you get closer to the actual deadline, not the roster freeze that occurs before the Olympic break, but when you get to that deadline in March, we start to see teams get a little bit more desperate, right? Somebody may miss out on somebody. They may become more to the calling to of Doug Armstrong meeting his asking price, especially on guys like Falk or Shen. I still think that the Kyrou and Thomas, I think he's right to be asking for what he believes is their price point. I don't think anything gets done with those guys, even if you wait until after the post-Olympics to the trade deadline. But I think holding that high price tag, you can still get an idea of which teams might be able to get to that once we get to the offseason, right? I continue to say, you hear this talked about among GMs in all sports. Just because they don't get a deal done doesn't mean they haven't had conversations that can lead into the offseason. And I think if they're going to move a Kyrou or a Thomas at some point, it's going to be the offseason. But Falk and Shen, they're going to continue to hold those prices high till we get to the trade deadline in early March.
Who do you think actually gets dealt, T-Bone? Because as I look at it, like I'm in agreement with you. I don't think this is the season. This is the time where you get anything done with Robert Thomas. I don't think Kyrou is traded at this year's deadline. I don't think Booch is traded at this year's deadline. Maybe you're able to get something done with Braden Shin. Justin Falk would be at the top of my list on guys I expect to be moved. Maybe Jordan Bennington. Do you have anybody else that immediately comes to mind for you?
I wonder about Pius Suter. I've not heard his name out there, but I mean, he's got no trade protection at all. So he's a center that's got another year on his contract and can play third line center. I know he's dealt with injuries this year, but if he gets back and healthy before the deadline, could he be a guy that they at least explore potentially moving? He's one, and then I think outside of Falk and Shen, he's really the only one I would circle outside maybe one of the fourth liners. Like maybe they consider a call on Sundqvist. Maybe they consider something on Joseph if someone bites at that. Those are really the only guys that I would circle that I think they could potentially be moving at the deadline.
Yeah, that's kind of where I fall as well. I do wonder if they try to get more creative than this. I just think it's going to be so hard to move $8 million at the trade deadline.
Agreed.
Especially with guys that have this much term, because you could, if it's a 1-year deal at $8 million, you can eat some of that, and by the end of the season, really, it's not that much that another team is going to be taking on because it's the prorated salary for like half of what remains. So a team could be taking on $1 million or $2 million against the cap for a player that is an $8 million cap hit, but when you're the Blues and you have to send out, a player like Jordan Kyrou who has 6 years remaining on his contract and you're eating half of it for 6 years, that becomes really hard to make work. And in that scenario, you just have to get back so much in return. I don't think that's the kind of move you make at this year's deadline. I think that's an offseason move. And I think it's something that Doug Armstrong / Alexander Steen will look to prioritize once we get there. And these talks are just going to be in hopes to be able to ignite some kind of interest as we get closer to May, June, and ultimately July. Alongside Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Alex doing his best to get to the studio. Said he spun out, just got going again, about 15 minutes away. Sorry. Alex has no reason to apologize. He could have stayed home and I would have understood. Alex will be in as soon as possible to be a part of the show with myself and T-Bone. Coming up in 15 minutes, 314-399-9646. That is the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers. But next, T-Bone's favorite college basketball team has one of the best freshmen in the country. What does he represent for Illinois? We'll talk about it next year on 101 ESPN.
Tanner Hendrickson here, the Sports Center update brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Blues are off today. They will be back in action tomorrow when they host the Dallas Stars. We'll have pregame coverage tomorrow night starting at 6 o'clock with Alex Ferrario. Puck drop at 7 o'clock with Chris Carver and Joey Vitale. And tonight here on 101 ESPN, college hoops for you as we've got a battle in the Big 12 between BYU and Arizona. We'll have pregame coverage starting at 7:30 with tip-off at 8. The Sports Center update was brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, an Icon Heating and Air Conditioning dealer.
Back to more of it. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
There's Wagler around the screen, sets three, it's good! It's 40! It's the most any visiting player has ever scored in Mackey Arena. Mirkovic the rebound, and Illinois comes into Mackey Arena and knocks off fourth-ranked Purdue 88-82.
Just an absolutely ridiculous performance by Keaton Wagler. 46 points, the most an individual has ever scored in a road win over a top 10 opponent in AP poll history. Alongside Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Alex will be back in with us here in just a little bit. He is driving into the studio as he's had some internet issues at home. T-Bone, I'm going to lay this thing out for you because you're the Illini fan and you just saw Keaton Wagler put together one of the better performances that we've frankly ever seen by an Illinois freshman. How much has he changed the way that you view this roster, T-Bone?
Quite a bit, because I saw him early on, and, you know, he would look good against the teams that were the cupcakes, I'll call them, on their non-con schedule. And then I would see him against, like, Texas Tech, Alabama, and go, okay, this guy looks fine, right? He just looks fine. This is going to be Boswell that's going to be leading the charge at the guard position, and then you're going to have to rely on Ivicic and then Mirkovic as well to be the kind of the big three for him. Now they've got a fourth guy that can really score. Not the fourth guy. He's become the guy for them in scoring because he has really taken off. He just makes them so balanced now because he can shoot the three-pointer off the dribble, as we saw in that contest against Purdue. If he's left wide open, he's going to bury it against you. He was 9 of 11 from behind the arc in that contest against Purdue. And you add that on top of the fact that you've got Stojakovic, who can go a little bit off of the dribble. Boswell plays a little bit more in a slasher role. You've got Mirkovic, who can play down in the post, along with the Ivicic brothers, who are guys that are bigs, but really can spread the floor with their shooting. I think the fact that Wagler has now come into his game now as a freshman, I think it just opens everything up for this Illinois team and makes them a true contender to potentially get to a Final Four and potentially a national championship because they've got 5 different guys that can score on the floor and they don't have a weak spot when it comes to their offense. I thought he was going to be a weak spot till he really found his game here of late.
The size is what stands out to me about this Illinois team. And like the first time you saw them take the floor, you're like, oh, that looks different. That looks big and athletic and long, and they're going to be a problem for every team they go up against. And they were. The big question that I think, T-Bone, you can correct me if I'm wrong, the question that I had is, do they have enough pop from their guards? Like, do they have the scoring punch that's going to be necessary? Because especially as you get into Big Ten play, but even more so once you get into the tournament, there will be teams that can match up pretty well underneath. Because for all the size that this Illinois team has, I'll just go ahead and use this word, like, they're not all that girthy. They don't have huge hulking dudes on the interior. They're more guys that are, like stretch 4s, stretch 5s. They have real length, but they're not banging inside the way that some of these teams do. And so that could potentially be exposed in some individual matchups. Do you have the guard play to take advantage when that happens? And what's happened over the last couple of weeks especially, but certainly over the weekend, is that Keaton Wagler allows you to say, all right, they do have that. And we've already seen Stojakovic has that as well. He has that kind of a game, and he's got the size on the wing, and whenever he is playing guard for them as well, to be able to be one of those guys that can really change the look of the lineup. But Wagler, to me, man, I look back, and he's not as experienced as many of these players were, But you look back at the teams that have won titles in recent seasons, whether it's Shabazz or Dante DiVincenzo, Kyle Guy, Walter Clayton Jr. last year, they just took the tournament by storm. And you could feel it every time that they were on the court. He has that kind of upside. He has the ability in any given game to just completely take over the way that Kemba did. And the player that I wanted to bring up for you, T-Bone, because I think the team kind of resembles this. It reminds me a little bit of that Duke team that won the national title with Tyus Jones. This is about 10 years ago now, but that Duke team's one of my favorite because of how deep they were. Tyus Jones, Jahlil Okafor, Justice Winslow, like they had a bunch of different dudes that ultimately went on to play in the NBA. I see that on this year's Illinois team. I don't know how many of them are ultimately going to be, lottery picks like Wagler most likely, but they've got a lot of dudes that could spend some time at Pro Bowl.
Yeah, I like that comparison because I could see that for them because, you mentioned that Duke team. We just read off kind of the depth of this Illini team, and they can do it in all facets. My question, I think we talked about this. I don't remember which non-con game it was. It might have been either UConn or the Alabama loss. My question was, okay, if you're not making your shots, who are you getting the ball to and saying get to the rim? And Wagler can do that. He's more of the spot-up guy, but Stojakovic has taken on that role if need be. Definitely Boswell can do that when he comes back from injury. And you mentioned their size. They're just bigger and stronger than a lot of teams, I would say. Again, they're not like Hulks. They're not Kofi Coburn that's running around in the post. But they definitely are willing to throw the body around. And defense is still, I think, their biggest question mark. Who's going to be the guy that can defend the rim for them? But they've been able to kind of steady that. I know they gave up 82 in the contest. Prior to that, though, they hadn't given up 70 or more points in, I think it's 9 straight games. So their defense has really settled in as well.
The other thing is, I think they've adjusted to their personnel because early on this season, T-Bone, I remember watching them, especially in that game against Alabama. We're like, man, they are flying up and down the court. This team is playing at just this breakneck tempo. And it's fun as hell to watch. Don't get me wrong. It's my preferred style in college basketball. But then you look at it, and basically since like Thanksgiving, since that Connecticut game, they have slowed down significantly. They are really deliberate in the way that they go about their offense. In fact, they are the slowest Big Ten team right now in getting into their sets. No team in the Big Ten has a longer average possession length offensively than this Illinois team. There is a ton of ball movement taking place, and they're seeking out and hunting the best shots possible. They have the most efficient offense in the Big Ten. They have the slowest moving offense in the Big Ten. And that is a clear adjustment that we have seen from Brad Underwood because he's a guy that is more than happy to play at an up-tempo pace. He did so last year to a top 20 degree in college basketball. Now he's, 240th in the tempo that they're playing with this year. So I find that to be really interesting. They very clearly have made a concerted effort to change the style of play as they're getting into Big Ten performances.
Yeah, and I think part of the reason that he wanted to go or why he went with that is because of how efficient they are offensively, right? They can just drain the clock, wind it down, as you were talking about, with their longest possessions there, and they feel pretty confident that they're going to score and really put pressure on you. And I think I don't know when it was that he wanted that. I think in that Alabama game, they did play faster, but you could tell that he wanted to kind of slow things down in that game. And I don't think the guys fully understood it just yet as to why he wanted to play slower. That Alabama game, they were fighting back and forth on if they wanted to play slower, if they wanted to play up-tempo. But since then, though, they have gone more to this slower style, and I love it because I think it's really what you talked about there. The ball movement from it reminds me when I watched them. Now, I didn't watch this team growing up, but it reminds me of that team that got to the championship. The highlights that you would see when they had Darren Williams running the point with that team, it was constant ball movement, swinging the ball around. The ball wouldn't touch the floor sometimes, and then the next thing you know, they had an open three-point shot in the corner. I don't know that they're as good as that team is because that team got to the championship game, but that's the closest thing that I can remember in my time watching Illinois basketball is just the highlights growing up of that team. When I see them at their best, when they're playing slow, moving the basketball around, all 5 guys can touch it, and they can touch it from anywhere on the floor, that's what it reminds me of.
All right, T-Bone, that's enough on the Illini. Let's play a highlight from the better game of the weekend.
4.8 left. Here's Mitchell across midcourt for Mizzou for the win. Yes! Mark Mitchell at the buzzer.
That That was one of their 2 buzzer beaters in this game against Oklahoma. I don't care how they won. I don't care that it took overtime to beat Oklahoma, who is a really bad basketball team. Does not matter to me. I'm not even going to pay attention to the fact that Ant Robinson was basically benched for this game and ultimately came away with, I don't know, 2 points in the game, and has now scored, I think, 2 or fewer points in like half of his games in conference play. I'm choosing not to focus on any of those things. This is a pass-fail test. We know Missouri is not a very good basketball team this year. The hope, the goal, the expectation is simply to make it to the NCAA tournament. Losing that game at home against that Oklahoma team would have been a blemish on your resume. All that mattered was that you came away with a victory, and they found a way to do so. I would like to add one other thing, T-Bone. I love T.O. Barrett. I don't know how good he actually is, but I love watching him play. He battles his ass off. He gets to the free throw line. He is fun as hell when his passes connect, because he makes some great ones.
Big
when
caveat.
they don't, it is infuriating because he turns the ball over basically 1 out of every 3 possessions. That's very frustrating to watch at times, but boy, is he fun when he's on, and he was on Saturday against Oklahoma. That was one of his best games in a Mizzou uniform, and I am all in favor of seeing him get more playing time over Anthony Robinson, who I really like, but he's just not what this team needs. He is a fade into the background. I am going to be good at defense. I am going to set others up. This team doesn't have enough scoring around him to really accentuate what he is as a player. That's a roster construction problem. That's on Dennis Gates. He has to answer for that. But right now, given the way the team is constructed, somebody that's more aggressive, T.O. Barrett is the guy that I think should be seeing the majority of that playing time down the stretch.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I think the most important part that you said there at the very beginning was this was a pass-fail test for Missouri, because they are going to live on the bubble all season long, it looks like. I can't see them going on a run to where they can kind of really solidify themselves as a team that belongs in the NCAA tournament. That's the game you could not lose. You had to find a way to win that basketball game against Oklahoma. Yeah, it was ugly. I expect that from Missouri, right? I don't – when you watch them, I don't see one thing that they are great at outside of when Mark Mitchell has the ball in his hands. And then you can say, big fella, go score. Outside of that, they've got to win games like this that are dogfights. Sometimes it's going to be defensive. Sometimes it's going to have to be putting up 88 points to survive against Oklahoma.
Jeremy over in the YouTube chat says, guys, talk salute. They absolutely beat the crap out of St. Bonnie's. The Bonnies over the weekend, 97-62. There's really just not a whole lot to add to that conversation. They did exactly what we expected them to, and they have been doing that continuously basically all season long. They are a legit top 25 team. If they continue playing the way that they have, they should get in as an out-large, even if they don't win their conference tournament. They are the exact kind of team that high majors will want no part of once we get to the NCAA tournament, because they can beat you in any way, and they shoot the lights out of the basketball. They are a nightmare matchup for so many of these other teams across the country. So yeah, they're legit. There's no questions that I have about that team right now. It's just a matter of how high they can get their seeding at this point.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think they should probably be a tournament team, even if they don't win the A-10. But, man, right, I mean, when they play the top teams in the A-10, they're just playing with their food. And the Bonnies fell victim to that this past weekend. I mean, they're just so deep. They're, like you said, they can score at any level. They're athletic as hell. This is one of those teams that we hear it a lot of, SLU. Hey, this team's going to be pretty good. A lot of years they don't live up to it. This is the year where they're really going to live up to it, and I agree with what you said. They get into the tournament, they could be a team that could get to the Sweet 16. I think that's how talented they are.
Oh, yeah, they could go on a run. This team has that kind of talent, and they have a coach that's going to be highly sought after by big-time
Mizzou
programs
should
across
hire
the
him.
country. Hey, man, if things go south and Shirt stays for another year, I think you should absolutely give him the call. All right. He's Tanner Hendrickson. I'm Brandon Kiley. I think Alex Ferrario is getting close to the studio. He was at home. He was planning to do the show from home today. Ultimately, his internet went out. He's trying to make his way into the studio. We will see if we can get him in this next segment. That segment is going to be questions and answers. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. If you guys have any questions, go ahead and get them in right now. We'll answer them next here on 101 ESPN.
On home ice, you need every advantage, and that includes reliable heat when winter strikes. That's where Scott Lee Heating Company comes into play. Scott Lee Heating Company's league-leading team is veteran-owned, locally owned, and has provided homes in St. Louis with comfort for over 40 years. Stay warm, stay safe.
The Scott Lee way.
As a Mitsubishi Electric Elite contractor, they keep families safe and warm all season long. Call 314-756-9444 or visit ScottLeeHeating.com. Scott Lee Heating, your Mitsubishi Electric Elite contractor.
Window Nation customers have been singing our praises for years. With fast, local service and a 96% customer satisfaction rating, the highest in the industry, it's no wonder. Here are real stories, real results from satisfied Window Nation customers.
I researched window companies for the last year to see what the average prices were and the quality of work. Window Nation nailed both.
Our Window Nation consultant, Daniel, was a 10 out of 10. They would not give up until they designed windows with safe, pure, and efficient material. Window Nation is amazing, legit, and affordable.
Hey, it's BK for our friends over at Underdog. I hope you took advantage of all of the action that was over there this weekend for championship weekend. Don't forget, they've already got your plays ready to go for the big game. It's 2 Sundays from now. For me, I like Kenneth Walker. Yeah, of course, he's going to score a touchdown. I like Drake May to lose a fumble in this game because he's been doing it all postseason long. And go ahead and give me Drake May higher on his rushing yards as well. Put that all together. It's about 4-1 odds over on the Underdog app. Getting ahead of things for the big game, Alex.
Yeah, if you do this right, you could win up to 5,000 times your cash. Plus, there's promo dropping daily on the Underdog app. So if you like making those entries, make sure you check out all of those promo options that Underdog offers. So download the Underdog app today. Use promo code BKO to score $75 in fantasy bonus entries when you play your first $5. Or on fantasy, that's promo code BKO. Underdog, make plays, win money. Must be 18 plus and present in Missouri. Terms apply. See assets.underdogfantasy.com/web/play and get terms. _DFS_.html for details. Concerned with your play, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Visit www.ncpgambling.org.
$314-399-9646. That's the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers. If you guys have any questions, go ahead and get them in right now. We'll answer them here on BK and Ferrario. Alex back in studio for us now.
Yeah.
What a wild 45 minutes
Did you get
that
your
was.
sled dogs out?
Oh, my gosh. Well, and also, I heard you guys mention what I texted you on air that I slid out. And so, of course, the one time Katie's actually listening during lunchtime, she's like rampantly texting me, being like, are you okay? I heard, BK, you slid out on the side of the road. So, like, after I got going, I called her. I said, yeah, I'm fine. Like, legitimately, it wasn't bad. It was just I was at a red light on Gravois, and my back wheels just started to slide a little bit. It's the best way to put it. As I hit the gas and went, and the pack wheels went one way. I tried to correct the other. Next thing you know, I'm on the side of gravel. And now the good news is there was nobody out there, so I was fine. But to get it going, the back wheels, I had to kick some of the snow and the stuff off and had to push it a little bit. But we got going. Dedication, I guess.
Attaboy.
Can't call out the actual internet company that I use because they do stuff on our station. But my God, am I upset.
From Starvin Marvin, clearly you all should have just driven into the studio. It's obviously not that bad out.
Yeah, obviously. Yeah.
Clearly. Clearly it's totally great.
Obviously, coming from the guy that was standing under the side of the road trying to get my car to go back and forward. It's fine.
I had no problems today.
Dedication.
The
highway was great.
I know.
Getting to the highway.
done a pretty good job on the highway.
And also, I told T-Bone the real reason was because we got a foot of snow in Fenton/Arnold, and I spent 2 hours last night trying to shovel most of it off. I spent 2 hours this morning trying to shovel it off, so I made a path, but they hadn't plowed our street until this morning, 30 minutes after I got done shoveling. So I made a path. The snowplow came through and then added the path that I created right in front. So I had a wall that I had to just drive through and hope I made it through.
All right, let's go ahead and get to these questions. 314-399-9646. That is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. Let's start out with this from the 314. Alex, are the Blues practice lines today any indication that they may end up sending Stenberg back down? I had not seen these. Luke Korak tweeting these out just a little bit ago. Otto Stenberg is an extra at practice today. Top line, Berggren, Shin, and Snuggie. Second line, Neighbors, Booch, and Kyrou. Third line, Fabry, Dvorsky, and Joseph. What do you make of that, Alex?
I don't think that signifies they're going to send him down. I think that signifies he's taken a little bit of a step back these last couple of games, and they give him a reset. They've indicated that as such that, he's going to see at the NHL level that it takes a lot of wear and tear with the amount of games you're playing. So they probably wanted to just get him a reset, figure out where he was. He's gone from the top line to the third line. I don't think this means they're going to send him down. Pius Suter and Dylan Holloway aren't even skating with the team. They skated today, but they didn't skate with the team for a full practice. I don't anticipate Suter or Holloway playing other than maybe those last couple of games before the Olympic break. And even if they come back, I don't see how they would send Otto Stenberg down. So, no, I don't think that signifies anything other than just I want to give him a reset. He'll probably be scratched on Tuesday, and he'll be back in the lineup on Thursday.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line from the 314. Guys, how was Mizzou done in the transfer portal? And can you predict their record for 2026? Thanks.
11-1.
Good luck predicting records at this point in the offseason. At least now we have a decent idea of who's going to be on the team. How good are they? Good luck. I would say they got a B, maybe a B plus for what they did in the transfer portal. I wish they would have been able to get more on the defensive line, but they completely overhauled both their wide receiver and cornerback rooms. They really improved, I think, at the safety position as well, which was necessary. They needed to in a bad way. And then they added a lot of depth to the roster with Power 5 transfers that are younger, similar to what they did early in the Eli Drinkwitz era at Mizzou. So I think they did pretty well overall. I wish they would have had at least one more just dominant edge rusher that they could have brought into the mix. Ultimately, they weren't able to land one of those guys. Record for next year, as of today, I mean, so much of this comes down to whether or not Austin Simmons is good, and I don't know the answer to that. I'll say 7-5 or 8-4, somewhere in that range. I'll go 8-4 just to be a little more optimistic.
I was going to ask, you hope the floor 8-4 is kind of what you're hoping for? I mean, that what you would mean there is you probably, right now on their schedule, and look, this can all change once we see the season because ask Penn State and Clemson how their early season rankings did for them. But right now you've got 5 top 25 teams on what would be on your schedule. By the way things ended this past year, win one of those, kind of do what you did this year. You beat the teams you should beat. Yeah. I think you put you at your floor about 8-4 there.
Yeah, you've got Texas A&M at home. Let's go ahead and assume that's a loss. On the road at Ole Miss. I don't know what to do with them for next year.
You guys are Ole Miss.
Assume it's a loss. Texas at home. Let's assume that's a loss. I think they're the best team in the country going into next season. And then at Georgia, let's assume that's a loss as well. I don't think any of those. That's 4 top 10 teams from this past year. I don't think any of those would be viewed as like a failure if you lose those games. I know for some people they say, well, you've got to win the big game eventually. Yeah, I understand, and maybe they will, but This would require them to beat Oklahoma at home. It would be a win against Florida at home, a win against Kansas on the road. 8-4 is where I'll go ahead and land.
Yeah, I'm with you there. That would be where I would try and target it at, 8-4. I like some of the moves, like you had mentioned, that they've added to the defensive side of the ball, especially at safety. We'll see on the quarterback, but like watching him when he was at Ole Miss earlier this year before he got Wally pipped on the job, he looks like I think he's going to be fine at best for Missouri. And we saw below average quarterback play last year, and they were able to still end up as a good team. So I think 8-4 is what the goal should be going into next year.
From Black Oak, if Alex can drive to the studio at 11, why couldn't he have driven in on time? And why is BK being such a baby?
Whoa,
my son's at home today. There was no daycare.
I heard hockey pucks back there earlier.
Yeah, I needed to be able to relieve my wife as quickly as possible because she also has to do a full work day at some point.
Now, let me just fill in the blanks for all the people listening. I'm soft. I shouldn't have been driving. I'm weak. I should drive in the snow. Blah, 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 blah.
All right, cut it.
Yeah.
All right, 314
saved you the time.
9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line from the 314. Is Illinois football going to be bad again for the foreseeable future?
They might be. Whew. Brad.
What about that family?
Bilma, can we get to the portal, please? Man, they've got a bottom 50, or not bottom 50, excuse me. They were not even in the top 50 in the transfer portal class that they brought in. I know he likes the recruiting class he brought in, but that's like a top 30 recruiting class at best. I think they're going to be really bad next year. I'm worried they're not going to make a bowl, and you only need 6 wins to get bowl eligible, which scares me.
Let's see where they
What happened to that family, man? Thought that family was what carried them.
9th in their transfer portal rankings.
That's not good. And like one of the top recruits might be a punter or a long snapper. I think a long snapper was one of the big ads.
That's really how you should have answered the question right there. Their top recruit is a punter.
Yeah. The following teams were ranked ahead of Illinois on the transfer portal rankings: Syracuse, South Florida, West Virginia, Houston, Utah, Cincinnati, Northwestern, Kansas State, Purdue, Mississippi State.
Oof.
Yeah, it's not great, buddy. It's not what you want.
No. And, I like Lawfrey that's coming back at running back. I think he's fine. Outside of that, like, you're not really returning a bunch that gets me excited. I don't know, guys. Is the Bielema era, is it over before it really began?
Yeah.
I tried to explain this to you this year as to why you should have.
Shut up, Brandon. I don't need your tone in a time of sadness.
Your best year was last season. You should have been enjoying. You should have been living in the moment last year.
Coming up in 15 minutes, we'll play a game of in or out. 314-399-9646. That is the Air Comfort Service text line. If you guys have a scenario, we will tell you if we are in or out on BK and Ferrario. But coming up next, are we entering into a new era in the NFL? What does this Super Bowl represent? We'll talk about it next year on 101 ESPN.
So I had one of those moments over these last couple of days because it got so cold outside that I got home from the Blues game and I walked up to my thermostat and I'm like, man, it's cold in my house. And I saw it was like 64 degrees. And I'm like, what in the heck happened? I thought my furnace went down. So here's the customer service at Classic Air Care. This was at 11:30 at night. I called them. I explained to them what was happening. They answered, by the way, which is huge. And they explained to me that something may have gotten flipped, some type of switch on the furnace in the basement. Go down, flip it back on. on and it should work. And it did like magic. No charge there. It's just the customer service that you get over at Classic Air Care. But look, they've got people available for you at 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to give them a call. They got 100 vans out on the road, after-hour techs. So when something happens, because we all live in this world, something will happen. You want to have a company that's there to take care of you. Call Classic Air Care today. I've been using them since 2016. They'll take care of your old HVAC system, maintain it for you, or they'll install a new one with financing options that are available. So you can call them today. You can also schedule online. Just do me a favor and tell them Alex Ferrario sent you. That's Classic Air Care and ClassicAirCare.com.
Want to hear the highlights? Need player reaction? Want more analysis and opinion? It's all here on Curbside, your next day postgame podcast with a voice of the St. Louis Blues, Chris Kerber. Catch new episodes of Curbside every morning after every Blues game on 101ESPN.com or on the 101 mobile app.
Curbside is presented by Blue Note Roofing. Roofing, siding, and gutters. Your St. Louis roofing experts. Visit BlueNoteRoofingSTL.com for a free inspection. And by Bellman Automotive for the best price on a new Buick, GMC, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, or a used vehicle. Shop Bellman in Troy online and at Bellman.com. You can't do better than Bellman.
WXOS HD1 East St. Louis 101 ESPN is driven by Brown and Crouppen Law Firm. They are St. Louis. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
The new NFL sure looks like the old NFL. Alongside Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. As I was watching the games over the weekend, Alex, all I could think about is, man, the teams that are really good seem to have quarterbacks on like rookie wage scale deals or deals that are based upon their performance well below market value. Sam Darnold fits into this criteria. I think he's like 25th in the NFL in salary cap hit this season for the Seahawks. The same thing would be true certainly for Drake May, who was on a rookie level deal this season, and they were able to go out there and spend hundreds of millions of dollars to improve their roster based upon the flexibility that that contract provides for them. Alex, we've seen this. This is not new. I went back and did a little research recently on Super Bowls, basically over the last decade. I think it's like 8 of the last 10, you've had at least one team in the Super Bowl that had a rookie level contract on their books for their quarterback. Are we back? Are we back to that being the advantage that it once was? Because it seems like Mahomes kind of masked that for a little while, especially in the AFC. Do you think we're back to seeing that return to being a huge advantage in the NFL again?
I think we're back to seeing it this year. I don't think we're back to seeing it consistently dominate the NFL. And what I'm about to say can be masked by the fact that Josh Allen got beat by that elite defense, but I also don't think that was a good roster around him. I still think if you've got an elite difference-making quarterback, you can overcome those defensively efficient teams, but this playoff run, you just haven't had that elite quarterback, or you haven't had the roster to go with that elite quarterback, i.e. the Buffalo Bills. But, man, when you have a playoff field like this, if you've got an elite defense and other teams just don't have that magical quarterback that can overcome it, like a Patrick Mahomes, like a Josh Allen, like a Joe Burrow, then, yeah, I think defense dominates the NFL. And I think the Seahawks are a little bit of a different mesh than the Denver Broncos, not because Jared Stidham's the quarterback and not Bo Nix, but even with Bo Nix, like, I just don't think their offense was that great. Seattle still has a really good offense that's dangerous when they're clicking. So I just think that's going to be the narrative this year, and I think next year we're back to the same conversations that we were for the past few seasons of the elite quarterback, the elite offense is what dominates.
Yeah, I'm kind of stuck in between, but I lean towards this isn't going to be the norm. I think it's still going to see quarterbacks, even on the big contracts like a Patrick Mahomes, a Josh Allen, be able to get over the top. I think this was just one of those one-offs. I think you just saw these teams get kind of caught by surprise with their rosters, but I expect the Chiefs to be able to kind of retool on the fly. I expect the Ravens to kind of figure out their weird dynamic that must have been going on between Lamar and Harbaugh. I think long as you have an elite quarterback, they can make up for any deficiency that you may have. I mean, look at that Chiefs team from last year that got to the Super Bowl. I know they lost it to the Eagles. They ran into a juggernaut in them. But Mahomes was able to make that wide receiver room look pretty good. And it wasn't outside of Rashee Rice. I think you can still see that across the board with some of these great quarterbacks. I mean, look at Stafford. I know that the Rams were a pretty good offense around him. We talked about it in the open, BK. That defense was not very good for the LA Rams, but Stafford was almost able to make up for it all because he was so dominant on the offensive side of the ball. So I think it's going to I think this is a blip. I think this is just a blip on the radar. I think elite quarterbacks on the big contracts can still get past these rookie level teams.
I think they can. I don't think it's a blip, though. I think there's some causation here. We've seen things change for the Chiefs since Kelsey entered this era of whatever he is, like the twilight of his career, so to speak. They need elite level players around Patrick Mahomes, and it's really hard to have access to those players where they have been drafting. I mean, you look at it, this is just going back to 2020, where they have selected in the first round. 32, 21, 30, 31, 28, 32. You don't have access to those high-level players with those picks. The Bills, since 2020, have selected in the first round 30th, 23rd, 25th, 33rd, 30th. Those are their top picks over the last 6 seasons. Meanwhile, the Ravens, who also fell off a cliff this year, they picked 20th, 27th, 31st, 25th, 22nd, 30th, 27th, and 14th. It's no coincidence the player they selected at number 14 overall was Kyle Hamilton, who is the best player on the defensive side of the ball for the Baltimore Ravens. It's really hard in free agency to go acquire those players when you have a quarterback making what Lamar, Patrick Mahomes, and Josh Allen are. It's nearly impossible to find those high-level blue-chip talents at the back end of the first round of the NFL draft, the way that the Chiefs, the Ravens, and the Bills have now been selecting for 5+ seasons. So finding access to those players is growing increasingly difficult. All 3 of those teams have seen their quarterbacks take up a larger chunk of the cap, really over the last 2 to 3 seasons. And I do not think it's a coincidence that we have seen each of them seemingly fall off from where they were early on in the Mahomes, Lamar, and Josh Allen era to where they are today. Meanwhile, you see these other teams, they're able to add the necessary talent. The Patriots added the talent around their quarterback this past offseason. The Broncos were able to add the talent to the defensive side of the ball. Same thing for the LA Chargers. And when you see stuff like this happening around the league for teams that have cheaper quarterbacks, earlier in their respective careers, man, I don't think this is an outlier unless the quarterback classes stop supplying the talent. That is the other part of this that I think is really important. The Patriots would not be in the Super Bowl if they didn't have Drake May. Like, for all of his issues and warts this postseason, man, he has not been great. They have not made it to the Super Bowl because Drake May has just like lifted this offense to another level. But he was great during the regular season, which allowed them to have this path. And that's really important. So if we continue to have quarterbacks like Drake May in the NFL draft, I think you will continue to see more of these teams emerge as legitimate contenders sooner rather than later. Throw the Bears into this exact same category.
Yeah, that's interesting because, like, I don't disagree, but you do think back on it, like, the couple of the most recent draft classes haven't produced great quarterbacks in the first round, as we saw with the Jets and their, like, 2 or 3 experiments with their quarterback in the first round. But I don't know. I just still view it as, like, I get what you're saying because you're not wrong. When you're a team like the Chiefs and you're drafting in the back part of the first round, and especially like the final 4 picks of the first round, the talent is not as good as it is up at the top of the NFL draft. But even then, we still see you basically get about a 50-50 shot to end up with a good player in the draft. And you get more chances later on. I think when you have an elite franchise quarterback like a Mahomes, like a Josh Allen, you don't have to get a star to come in at whatever position that you're needing. It's like 80% of that, right? Because you expect the quarterback to pick them up and really lift them. It's the credit I always gave to Mahomes and Brady, especially on the offensive side of the ball, where it was, man, you could surround them with any wide receiver in the league and they're going to make them all look pretty good. And I think that holds true for just about any part of a football team when you've got an elite quarterback, because the Rams, they could outscore their problems on the defensive side of the ball. Now, is it a tough way to live? Sure, it's a tough way to live, but I think it can be done. So I don't think it's necessarily once you get that franchise quarterback, give them the big contract, well, now you're really out of luck. No, I think you can still build pretty good teams around.
I do think what's interesting is how teams become hesitant to pay quarterbacks because of all of this. I think the middle tier will be, well, we'll find out with Stroud. I think Stroud is going to be a interesting test case this coming season, because to your point on that, we saw Miami make the mistake, and I think all 3 of us screamed, whoa, don't pay Tua, don't pay Tua. And they paid him, and they lived to regret it. Stroud kind of falls into that, and we'll see, because as we've seen, teams have been able to pivot. Seahawks, for example, decided to go mid-tier market shopping, got Sam Darnold at a pretty good bargain for the way he's playing, and they're able to build the roster around him. And this is what the Bucs did with Baker as well. Baker signed this kind of a contract. So Stroud will be the test case to see if teams have learned from this. Because for me, Seahawks aren't here if Sam Darnold's getting paid significant amounts of money. And I wonder if teams look at this, say, we could build a better roster if we shop in that middle tier, unless you're drafting a franchise-altering quarterback.
That's the thing. I think it's ownership. Ownership will just say, I don't want to be back into the wilderness again. I don't want to be back in a situation where we don't have a franchise-level quarterback. The Vikings basically did this. They were the ones that let Darnold go, and look at where they're at right now. They are kind of the cautionary tale for all of the issues that some of these other teams are having that we've already mentioned. Man, I would still bet on the Bills to make the playoffs next year. I'd bet on the Ravens to make the playoffs next year. I would bet on the Chiefs to make it to the playoffs next year. What's their ceiling? I don't know. Maybe they never get back to the Super Bowl again. I would bet against that. But I would rather have those quarterbacks than not. So I think you will still see these quarterbacks getting those big money deals. To my point on the draft, T-Bone, I went in and looked at this. Since 2020, so this is 2020 to 2025, those drafts. Now, I want to make this clear before I say it. The Pro Bowl is not a perfect way to measure performance, but it is at least one that is easier for me to go through without having to go through individually with every single player to figure out, all right, who's performed well. From 2020 to 2025, there were a total of 96 players selected at this range of the draft that I'm talking about, 25th to 40th.
Okay.
Of those 96 players, only 9 made a Pro Bowl. Only 3 of the 96 made multiple Pro Bowl appearances. 2 of them were offensive linemen, and Tyler Linderbaum and Landon Dickerson. The other is Patrick Queen, who made it for the Ravens, and ultimately they decided they needed to upgrade at the position, and so he left. It's about a 10% clip of making it to a Pro Bowl, and even less than that, about like a 2 to 3% clip of guys that reach multiple Pro Bowls from this range of the draft. It's just really hard to get access to that elite level talent. And all of the Chiefs teams that have won Super Bowls, they had elite level talent. And that is the thing that I think was missing this year for them. I think it's the thing that is missing right now for the Bills. Like, who is the second best player on the Buffalo Bills in your guys' estimation? Is it James Cook?
Yeah. Now after that, like, it's a pretty big drop off from second to third.
After that, I'd probably say Dawson Knox.
And you go back to those Patriots teams. They always had elite talent outside of Tom Brady. Maybe it wasn't a ton of it, but elite talent on one side of the football outside of Brady. So I think it just puts that much more pressure on these teams to have success with their draft selections. And it is probably worth noting the Chiefs and the Ravens will both have an opportunity this offseason to go make those selections earlier in the draft than we typically anticipate.
And by the way, to your Patriots point on those guys, and I think the Rams would fall into this as well currently, sometimes you just got to hit on one of those lottery ticket picks late in the draft, right? Like Julian Edelman was a 7th-round pick for the New England Patriots. No one would have pinpointed him as being an elite talent guy that was going to be a part of the driving force to become a 3-time Super Bowl champion with Tom Brady. But the Patriots hit on that pick, right? And the reason I mentioned the Rams, you know what Puka was taken? 5th round, right? You have to hit on some of those picks. So, yeah, maybe you do miss out late in the first round. Yes, you're not access to some of the elite talent that is in the draft, but these teams that are able to kind of stay in their window, even with the expensive quarterback, what they do is they end up finding a lottery ticket somewhere across the draft that ends up becoming a stud for them.
Guys.
What'd you do, man?
What just happened?
What do you mean? What do you mean it's over?
You were moving over there. I
Did you
thought
lose
something
internet
happened.
access too?
Harrison Bader, according to Ken Rosenthal, has signed a 2-year deal with the San Francisco Giants. Oh.
Good for San Fran.
Yeah.
The first misstep of the Heim Bloom era.
Oh, get out of here. Now your question doesn't mean anything that you asked at winter warm-up.
Yeah, that's true.
I didn't ask that.
Yeah, sure you didn't. You didn't elbow the kid next to you saying, hey, ask about Harrison
Bader. Here's $5.
Yeah, here's $20. Ask about Harrison Bader to come in. Whoa, someone asked about Bader to the St. Louis Cardinals.
What a disappointment. What an absolute disappointment.
Bader getting that kind of contract, I agree, man.
I have no idea what the money is, but if it's less than $10 million,
disappointment.
Cardinals should have done it.
Giants overpaid.
Other news from the NFL: Shedeur Sanders has been added to the Pro Bowl roster as a replacement. This is
want to go back to your Pro Bowl argument that you just had?
Why you had that caveat?
I actually think it makes it more impressive that only 9 of the 96 players have made the Pro Bowl. If Shedeur Sanders is getting in and you can't even get in as one of the 25th to 40th overall selections, that means you really weren't good. All right, coming up in about 15 minutes, there seems to be some real movement on the position player trade market. We'll see what that means for the Cardinals and Brendan Donovan. We'll talk about that in 15 minutes. In or out next here on 101 ESPN.
Friday night, March 13th at the Family Arena. Find all the ticket details and your chance to win free tickets to Filter, Finger 11, and Local H right now at 101ESPN.com or on your 101 app. Powered by Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers. Giving you the picture, the real big St. Louis sports picture. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. Come on, man. Are you in or are you out? It's in or out with BK and Ferrario.
Three 314-399-9646. That's the Air Comfort Service text line for in or out. You guys give us a scenario. We will tell you if we are in or out here on BK and Ferrario. Before we get to that, though, the Senior Bowl is taking place this week, Alex. One of my favorite personal events of the year because I'm a complete draft nerd for the NFL. They are measuring all of the players today. Diego Pavia is among them, the former Vanderbilt Heisman Trophy contender. Measured in at 5'9" and 195 pounds. Yeah, that guy's not getting drafted.
Are you kidding me?
$195. No
chance. Yeah, somebody's like, we got our next Bryce Young.
Yeah, he doesn't have a great personality either for these in-person interviews.
He's got a great personality, I've heard.
I don't know.
This is going to go poorly for him.
Yeah, he's going undrafted. And you know what? Hopefully for him, his lawsuit goes through. He'll be back for year 10, Vandy.
Great. All right, let's get into in or out. You guys give us a scenario. We will tell you if we are in or out here on BK and Ferrario. Guys, in or out, Drake May will finally throw for 300 yards in this year's Super Bowl.
Oh, man, out.
I wouldn't even hesitate on that.
Yeah.
You guys talked about it in the open. My internet dropped before I could make any comments on this. You guys watched the Super Bowl yesterday, last night.
I agree.
I don't even think this Super Bowl is going to be very competitive. I think they'll make it interesting because both defenses are really good. I don't see Drake May having any success against Seattle's defense. That's too freaking good, man.
Yeah, and it's not like this will be the first great defense he's gone up against in the playoffs, right? He ran into Houston, and we saw he wasn't great in that Houston game. Houston lost because their quarterback killed him. He went up against Denver. He wasn't great in that game yesterday, and that wasn't just because of the weather conditions. He was not good in the first half either. Mm-hmm. So I'm expecting him to be able to bounce back against the Seattle defense, which is arguably the best in the league. Yeah, no chance. I don't see him throwing for 300 yards.
Agreed. He's had a really rough postseason for a guy that's going to the Super Bowl. It kind of reminds me, honestly, it's kind of similar to what we saw from Joe Burrow when the Bengals made it to the Super Bowl that year. Burrow really was not all that great. He made a few plays late, but it was the defense, surprisingly, for the Bengals that really pushed them to that Super Bowl. Lou Anarumo was kind of their MVP in the postseason. The same thing is really true for Drake. He's had a few big plays, don't get me wrong, and especially with his legs, both against Denver and against the Chargers. But overall, he just really, and man, the fumbles have been a problem. It just has not been a great performance by him, but they're in the Super Bowl, so it is what it is. Alex, what do you got for us today?
Guys, in or out, the Blues acquire the equivalent of 3 first-round picks at this year's deadline.
I'll say out because I don't think they will trade enough assets to be able to accumulate those picks at the deadline. I think if you were to say the equivalent of 3 first-round picks by next year opening night, I would agree to that. I would say in, but by the deadline, out.
Yeah, I'm out as well. I think Falk would get you a first. Shen might get you the equivalent to a first. And I'm skeptical they're getting a second one that's equivalent to that in Falk. So I'm kind of with BK. I don't know that they're trading the assets to be able to acquire 3.
I'm in. I think they get the equivalent of a first for Falk. I think there's a chance they could get the equivalent of 2 firsts with Shen, because I wonder if something gets attached with Shen. And what I mean by that is a prospect who was selected first in the first round and then a first-round pick. And then I wouldn't rule out Kyrou getting traded at the deadline. I heard you guys mention when I was trying to push my car back into the road to get going. From Jeff Merrick's comments, I really wonder if Washington's interested in Kyrou, I think they pull the trigger at the deadline if they can make the money work. Because if you're Washington, you need to get yourself better than where you're at. And 2, you don't know if Ovechkin's coming back next year. So make your team worthwhile to see if you can win a cup right now. So I'm going to say in. I think they get the equivalent of 3 at the deadline.
Guys, in or out, we will see a non-quarterback win Super Bowl MVP.
Ooh, that's a fun one. I think if the Patriots win it, you'll see Drake May as the MVP regardless. Like, I just don't see anybody else really getting there. The Seahawks have a lot of contenders for this, though. Like, JSN could absolutely do it. Kenneth Walker has been unbelievable for them in the postseason. I think the Seahawks are going to win. So I'll say a non-quarterback wins Super Bowl MVP this year from the Seahawks specifically.
I'll say out. I think it's either Darnold or May. Because I think if JSN, unless Kenneth Walker goes off, which I don't know if it's going to happen against the Patriots, but if JSN goes off, I think some of it is because of Sam Darnold. So I'll say out. I think either Darnold or May wins it.
Yeah, I'm leaning in because, like, watching that game last night, as great as Darnold was, dude, JSN was on a different level in that contest. Like, I would have voted for him for MVP in the conference championship game, and I get it, Darnold had really good numbers. I think we could see either JSN win it, maybe Kenneth Walker, and I could see, now it's a very long shot, and especially when you look at the betting odds, I could see a Seattle defender end up getting the MVP. If you have someone like a Witherspoon who gets 2 picks in the game against Drake May for how good that defense is, I could see where we end up seeing a defensive player end up winning the MVP. I'm going to say in. I do not think it's going to be either of the quarterbacks.
I also think this is a part that we have to keep in mind. Like, this is voted upon by media members, right? So I think there is a benefit of the doubt that is given in this regard to guys like Patrick Mahomes and Tom Brady. When you are one of the best in the world and you have been for, close to a decade or more, I think voters will give you the benefit of the doubt. And that is represented by the fact that since 2014, the following quarterbacks have won NFL Super Bowl MVP. Brady, Mahomes, Mahomes, Jalen Hurts, Nick Foles. The only non-Brady / Mahomes quarterbacks to win it are Hurts last year and Nick Foles in 2017 when he had an unbelievable game. In that same stretch of time, the following non-quarterbacks have won it. Malcolm Smith for the Seahawks, Von Miller for the Broncos, Julian Edelman did do it for the Patriots, and then Cooper Kupp did it for the Rams back in 2021. I think this happens more often than we would expect when you get one of those teams that doesn't have the all-time great quarterback that ultimately makes it and wins the Super Bowl.
I like it. Plus 550, by the way, JSN odds over at DraftKings. Ooh, I think I'm going to put some money down on that.
All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for in or out. You guys give us a scenario. We will tell you if we are in or out here on 101 ESPN. From the 314, in or out, at least 2 more Cardinals will be traded prior to the start of spring training.
Out. I think it's just 1, and it's Donovan.
I'm with you.
That's where I'm at as well.
Yeah, I'm trying to think who the second
Unless Newbar, or if it's more than 1, it's in
JoJo.
one trade.
JoJo would be the other.
I don't think they're 2 separate trades. If it's more than 1 player, it's in one trade.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
And I think Seattle would be that team potentially.
Agreed.
Like if the Mariners decided to make the move for Donnie, I could see JoJo being included in that.
Yeah, I agree. I would say out on this. My expectation is it's just going to be Donnie. You don't typically see rental relievers get moved at this point in the offseason. JoJo's probably a trade deadline move, and if Newbar gets thrown, Newbar probably would be a throw-in, I think, at this point.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. Guys, in or out, the Blues will get the number 3 overall pick, and we'll miss out on both Stenberg and McKenna.
Yeah, that's my concern. That is my concern. The hope here is, one, the conspiracy theory gods work in the Blues' favor, and they get a pick based on the lottery. Or also one of those top 2 teams takes Keaton Veerhoff, and that's the projected first defenseman that's going to go. I've heard a lot of people say, like, he is a rare defenseman, so maybe one of those teams say we need a defenseman, we go that route. But I'm going to say out because I hope my fears aren't true, that the Blues either get a top 2 pick or they find a way to get one of those 2 guys.
I'm going to say in. Here in St. Louis, we can't have nice things apparently over the last couple of years as I've seen, so I'm in. Unfortunately, they'll probably end up with the 3rd pick.
That is going to be awful.
I'm out. I think they'll get a top 2 selection. I think that
worried.
by the end of the season, they will be A-okay and will be right up there.
I'll tell you this. If they have a top 2 pick and take that defenseman, I'm going to lose my ever-loving mind on the radio. I am going to lose my mind on the radio. I don't care if he's going to be the next Hall of Fame defenseman. You need offense. Draft a forward.
I'm with you.
I'm getting
pre-mad. You're not going to hear any pushback by me. Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK, it's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. It's 12:35. Your time check brought to you by Clarkson Jewelers, an officially licensed Rolex jeweler. Coming up next, the Giants made a big move today by adding Harrison Bader. They're also seemingly willing to give up some legit prospect capital in order to make a deal. Is this signifying that there's movement taking place in the position player market? Finally, we'll talk about it next year on 101 ESPN.
101 ESPN. Get in the know first on everything St. Louis sports with Tim McKernan, Doug Vaughn, and Martin Kilcoy. Listen to TMA weekday mornings from 7 to 11 a.m. on 101 ESPN. The morning after is presented by Brown and Crouppen Law Firm. 101 ESPN Sports Center.
Tanner Hendrickson here with the Sports Center update brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Blues fell to the LA Kings 5-4 in a shootout back on Saturday. They are off today. They'll be back in action tomorrow night when they host the Dallas Stars. We'll have pregame coverage tomorrow night starting at 6 o'clock with Alex Ferrario. Hook drop at 7 o'clock with Chris Kerber and Joey Vitale. And tonight here on 101 ESPN, we got a Big 12 hoops action for you as BYU takes on Arizona. We'll have pregame coverage starting at 7:30 with tip-off at 8 o'clock. The Sports Center update was brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, a Daikin heating and air conditioning dealer.
101 ESPN.
There seems to be some level of movement on the position player market. It's about time. It's taken a while in Major League Baseball. Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. You've got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. The Giants earlier today announced that they are signing Harrison Bader to a 2-year contract. That broke my heart, but it doesn't.
Come to the end. Don't worry, buddy. You'll maybe talk about trying to trade for him at the deadline this year.
Oh,
I don't think the Cardinals will be buying.
You don't think they'll buy after Harrison Bader?
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt.
That'll be an off-season move. They'll get him next off-season when he has 1 year left on his contract.
Of course.
The Giants, though, also made news over the weekend as Andrew Baggerly, who covers the team for The Athletic, reported the following. With their options thinning out and just 2 weeks before players report for spring training, the Giants recently turned up the aggression to get something done on the trade market. According to Major League sources, they signaled their openness to include highly regarded teenage shortstop prospect Joshua Gonzalez in a package for Nationals infielder C.J. Abrams. So in other words, according to at least some services, they were willing to give up a top 30 overall prospect for C.J. Abrams. I'm guessing that wasn't previously available for the Nationals, considering that's the kind of prospect that can actually make a deal get done. If that is indeed the case, it signals that teams are starting to get antsy. They are ready to get their roster set prior to opening day. I know Chaim Bloom went on KMOX yesterday, Alex, and said, hey, we don't feel the need to trade Donnie unless we are blown away. It is our job to listen to offers, but this is not something that we are hoping to get accomplished necessarily. Just something that, you know, he's a big trade chip, so we have to at least listen. We've asked this 100 different times this offseason. We will do so again. Do you think that Brendan Donovan will be on the opening day roster for the Cardinals this year?
I don't. I think this is just Chaim Bloom trying to continue to make this market happen. I still think there's multiple teams that are in on Brendan Donovan. I just think teams don't want to pay the price that the Cardinals are sitting there saying. And right now you're playing a game of trade chicken where one side is saying, well, we're not going to trade for him because that's too much money. And the other side's saying, fine, I'll bring him back. And nobody's believing the other person. But the thing is, when you get to spring training and all the front office members are getting together and they're looking at their whiteboard saying we're still lacking in a certain area if we want to be a contender. And then that's when you go back to the phone line and say, fine, we'll pony up. Let's just get this deal done. Now, maybe something gets added with Brendan Donovan to our in or out segment. You know, maybe there's a sweetener that goes in to try and push this move forward. But I don't believe he's going to be back here. I think this is just them playing chicken with each other. But I also believe that Brendan Donovan is a commodity that you need to trade now rather than later.
Yeah, I am still expecting him to be traded before we get to opening day. I don't want to say before spring training because I could see a scenario where we get to spring training, maybe he's here, and then Seattle looks at their team and goes, whew, boy, we really could use that upgrade at second base. And then they finally pull the trigger. But I think Alex described it perfectly. Right now it is a giant game of chicken. Who is going to budge first? And when you're in the seller's shoes like Chaim Bloom, he's technically right. Yeah, we can hold on to him, right? We can hang on to him, potentially move him at the deadline. We like him enough. We could give him a contract extension if we so please. I think he's doing a good job of trying to leverage this thing out and saying if you want to get Brendan Donovan, you've got to meet our asking price, and I think someone's going to meet it. I think, as BK said, teams are starting to get antsy, and they want answers typically before they go to spring training. So I expect he's going to be dealt before pitchers and catchers report.
I just refuse to believe that the Mariners are going to go into the season with this as their lineup. I just don't buy it, man. They currently have Victor Robles starting at one outfield position and Ben Williamson starting at second base. If you want to go into the season with Cole Young as one of your starters, you're betting on one of your former first-round picks. That's cool. I get that completely. But there's a couple spots in this lineup that really leave a lot to be desired, and I don't buy that they're just going to say, we're fine. We'll go ahead and go into the season with this, especially when you already have Wu, Gilbert, Castillo, Kirby, and Miller in your rotation. What is happening with all of these young prospects? Where are they going to get their playing time? You need to recalibrate your roster and offer up some of those young pitching prospects in order to acquire the player that really opens up the look for your lineup. He would be perfect batting leadoff for this team, man. You put him batting leadoff, you probably go ahead and put like Randy A 2, Cal Raleigh 3, Julio 4, Josh Naylor 5. That is the look of a contender. But they, according to Fangraphs, currently have Victor Robles batting 6th. That is not the look of a legitimate contender.
That's a power
They
bat.
need to replace him in that lineup.
That's the Cardinals of old right there. That's where Bader would hit in our lineup when we were kind of that middling
Now
team.
he's going to hit there for the Giants.
Yeah.
The new contract.
But I'm with BK. Like, I see Seattle and go, I just can't imagine, especially Dipoto, right? Like, this isn't a GM who we've seen in the past that is kind of hesitant on pulling off. Dude, Jerry Dipoto's typically pretty aggressive. Now, he typically ends up in the same spot, but he just moves the chairs around a little bit. I can't picture him sitting on his hands. Buster Posey seems to be still wanting to be aggressive and giving his best effort against the LA Dodgers, which good luck. But he seems to still have that aggressiveness to him. I think you're going to see one of those two teams move. I think you're going to see them pivot and say, finally, you know what, it's time to give in to what the Cardinals are wanting. We need to upgrade our lineup, and especially Seattle, when you're in an AL, that I would say is pretty open if you're able to upgrade that lineup. You would be up there with the favorites with like Baltimore, the Yankees, Red Sox, so on and so forth. But there's not an LA Dodgers that is out there in the AL. The LA Dodgers hold the NL, and it's not very close. The American League is still very wide open for the Mariners to make one move and put themselves right back in the conversation as a contender.
By the way, some news to pass along. It has been updated on the Harrison Bader front. He got a 2-year deal worth up to $21 million.
Per year?
According to John Heyman. No.
Oh, okay. Good God, man.
No. It's a 2-year deal, about 10.5 per year.
Gotcha.
Is what the overall numbers came in at. I also wanted to pass this along. We talked a little bit about the MLB Network Top 100 previously, and it turns out Mason Wynn did not make the list. So I owe T-Bone and Alex a 6-pack. I will be getting that for them as soon as the world is no longer shut down. The Cardinals had one player reach MLB Network's Top 100. These are the other teams that had one player in the Top 100.
Oh.
Ooh, hold on. Let's
Marlins?
I was going to say, let me try and guess. Rockies got to be on there,
go
right?
ahead. Rockies, yes.
Marlins, Rockies.
Athletics have more than one.
Do they?
Yeah, they got to. That first baseman.
4.
Yeah.
Holy crap.
Yeah, they got a couple of young, good
I
players.
knew they had Kurtz. I was really good. I didn't know if the other guys would get in there or not.
Pittsburgh.
Oh, that's a
They
good
are
guess.
one of the others. Skeens.
And you said Marlins. White Sox.
They are one of the others. There was one
Twins.
other team that had one player.
Was it
They had
Twins?
2.
They had 2? Who was there 2?
My guess is it was one of their starters. And
Oh, and
then
Buxton probably.
Angels.
Buxton, yeah.
Oh, is it
No,
Angels?
Angels had 2.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Rays? Did we say Rays?
No, they have 2.
My gosh.
Who else are we missing?
It's a team that is selling.
Oh, Washington? Did we say
Yep,
Washington?
Washington.
Yeah.
Washington's the other.
Man, they
the
only had
teams that
one.
have one player on Major League
probably used
Baseball
to have
Network's Top 100. Cardinals, Marlins, Nationals, Pirates, Rockies, and White Sox. That's exactly the problem.
Rebuild.
So awesome.
Meanwhile, let me go ahead and ask you this. Who do you guys think you would consider to be the top 4 teams most likely to win the World Series this year?
Dodgers
and then
won.
that's it.
Okay. Dodgers have 8 players on this list. That is the most.
I would think Blue Jays up there.
Yeah.
Blue Jays actually only have 4. I was a little surprised to see that.
Red
That's
Sox.
surprising.
Red Sox have 5.
Baltimore. I think Baltimore's a pretty good team.
Baltimore has 2.
Cubs.
Sleeping on Baltimore. Good odds, probably.
Cubs have 4.
You think the Cubs are a top 4 team to win the World
Yeah.
Series?
They stay healthy.
Seattle's got to be up there.
Seattle has 5.
Yeah, I
there
figured
are 2 others that you have not mentioned
Phillies?
yet that I think would probably be. Yep, Phillies have 5. There's one other team that you haven't mentioned that I think is probably up there among the top World Series contenders. It is not the Mets. They do play in the same town, though. It is the New York Yankees.
Oh, that makes
LA
sense.
has 8. Yankees have 6. And then you got the Phillies, the Red Sox, and the Seattle Mariners with 5 players in MLB Network's top 100. That's where the Cardinals need to hope to get to. They need to be in that 4 to 5 minimum range among the top 100 in order to view themselves as a legitimate contender. I think Ivan Herrera could firmly establish himself as such. I think J.J. Weatherholt could get himself into this criteria. I really do believe that Mason Wynn could become one of these guys as well. I think you are lacking somebody in that premier talent range, that top 20 in the sport, and that's really what they hope to acquire, either via trade or via one of these drafts over the next year or two.
Yeah, I was going to say, you can have 5 top 100 guys, but you probably need someone in that top 20, top 25, because those are those guys, like when I saw this list, that's like the Otanis, the Freemans, the Betts. Those are the guys that you can write in pen. It's simple, but write in pen. 30 homers, 100 RBI, the guy that when he steps to the plate, you fear he could do damage to you as the opponent. You got to have one of those guys. The pitching, I don't know if you necessarily need a top 20 pitcher in baseball. I think you can get away with just being a top 100 pitcher if you had 2 of them. But I think you've got to have at least one position player that's top 20 to 25.
No doubt. Basically, all of the teams that we view as legitimate contenders in Major League Baseball, they've got at least one player in the top 20.
Yeah, I didn't hear many Central teams there.
No. You didn't for a reason. By the way, kudos to the Cleveland Guardians. Jose Ramirez sticking around, signed another extension that's below market value. What an all-time great human being. Just an all-time great dude to have on your roster, consistently willing to hang out in Cleveland, apparently loves the city, loves the team, and he's a legit top 10 player in all of Major League Baseball, and he's signing consistently for below market money. Just an amazing story for him.
We need one of those.
Yeah, we need one of those guys that's just willing to take less to stay in the city.
He was number 5 on the list of the top 100.
He didn't stay.
He decided to go to the LA Angels.
Well, sorry, no.
I was going to say.
I'm in his first contract. I'm in his first contract.
Time for the jump drawer here on 101 ESPN.
America's fools.
The Patriots are fool's gold.
Are headed to Super Bowl 60.
And a new era of Patriots football is upon us.
As Drake May and the New England Patriots take on Sam Darnold and the Seattle Seahawks. Coverage starts next Sunday morning at 11. Super Bowl 60 is on 101 ESPN.
Hey, it's BK, and it is time for you to unlock your inner champion. The place to do so is with my friends over at Victory Men's Health. Check them out today. Super easy process to see everything they have to offer. It's at victorymenshealth.com. They can unlock your inner champion the same way that they have for me. For me, it meant going in there and finding out what my micronutrient levels were. It was a super easy process. Booked my appointment online. Went in, took like 5, maybe 10 minutes to get this thing done. They were able to find out exactly where all my micronutrient levels are at. And now I've got another appointment booked soon to find out what they are, and they can put together a personalized plan for me. That's what it looked like for me. Could be something completely different for you. Maybe it's erectile dysfunction, weight loss goals that you're looking to meet. Maybe it's low testosterone symptoms. Whatever it is, check them out today. You can go online at victorymenshealth.com. That's where you book that first appointment. It's a super easy process. Put in your name, email, phone number. Tell them BK with 101 ESPN sent you, and then tell them what it means for you to unlock your inner champion. It's all available today at Victory Men's Health and online at victorymenshealth.com.
For over 30 years, CertaPro Painters has been part of countless memories.
101ESPN.com or on your 101 app, powered by Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers. This is exactly where you want to be, listening to us. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. Let's open it up. The Junk Drawer with BK and Ferrario.
All right, let's dive into the Junk Drawer alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK. Alex, what do you got for us today?
I thought he just froze on us there, and I'm like, oh, no. So I watched something last night after the football game, guys, that I don't know if you've seen yet, but it's taken over social media. It's this free solo climber, Alex Hanold, who climbed the tallest tower in Taiwan without any bungee, rope, anything like that. He just free climbed this freaking building. Guys, I watched this from start to finish. The anxiety of him climbing this tower took over my whole body. Like, my feet were sweating, my hands were sweating, but I could not stop watching this. And then when he got to the top of this damn thing and he just stands there and is like circling around taking selfies, oh my hands are starting to sweat again talking about it. It was freaking incredible.
You know, I have a fear of heights. There was no way in hell I was about to watch that.
So
no chance.
I knew. So apparently it was live on Netflix Saturday. Yeah. I was at a Blues game, and my sister called me, and she's like, "Are you watching this?" And I'm like, "No, I'm about to go on the air," but I said I'll watch it later. And again, like the anxiety perk, because I'm the same as you, BK. I don't like heights. I don't like watching things with heights. But I was like, all right, well, I might as well like turn it on and see. And then like I saw him start to climb this damn thing, and I couldn't turn the television off.
Out of curiosity, did he ever, I think we can spoil this, it was a live event, did he ever like show a sign of slipping?
Slipping, no. Like, you could see, like, he did the thing to perfection. There was no concerns of him stopping or whatnot, but you could see he's climbing this, and I mean, it's like a metal building, and he's explaining, like, there's nothing to grip onto it. You're pinching the sides of this metal building, and then you see him at times, there's nothing to put his feet on, so he's got to, like, jump from one to the other, and like, oh, God, it was so freaking intense.
Apparently, I can't watch it. It makes me legitimately like feel kind of jumpy.
Yeah.
I get so much anxiety from seeing somebody do that up the side of a building. I can't myself be in a situation where I'm like overlooking something because I just assume I'm going to fall. Obviously, that's irrational, but I assume I'm going to fall. So I assume the same thing with this guy. I don't know how he does it, man. I saw something online. They apparently put him through some like clinical trials over the last couple of years, and they found that he like doesn't create the same fear mechanisms in his brain as the rest of us do. Obviously, that's a trained thing. Some of that is probably innate, but a lot of it is trained. It's really unbelievable that he's capable of doing this, and it's an amazing feat. I just personally can't do it.
So apparently, there was a movie, Free Solo. I didn't watch it because this stuff gives me anxiety that he does, and he does like free rock climbing all the time, and like they're showing clips of this during it of him doing this free rock climbing with nothing attached to him. And to me, that was more stressful watching that than seeing him climb the building, because the rock climbing, I don't know where you're putting your hands. Like, you're finding these cracks and crevices to just climb. But yeah, he was explaining how like mentally you do it just so much, but there's just never been that inkling of fear because you just have to just, be okay with it all. And they said at the beginning of it, which it was so funny. He said, because they asked why you're not wearing a parachute or something like that. And he said, for me, 100 feet or 1,000 feet don't matter. Once I cross the 100-foot threshold and I fall, I'm dead no matter what. So why have a parachute?
See, that's my thing. That's what I was going to ask you about. And I think it's something you have to face if you're one of these guys. Like, he's probably going to die doing this, right?
Yeah, probably.
I mean, you would imagine, but
you hear about accidents all the time.
The best in the world. So I mean,
rock climbing.
He does. He said he's done it since he's like 12 years old.
Absolutely, and he has never had the misstep that ultimately cost him his life. But it stands to reason that eventually, and I don't say this to be morbid, but like when you do stuff like this, you are putting yourself at risk of, the consequences of these actions are significant. If you fall, as he said, you die. That's the kind of thing I can't bring myself to do.
Yeah.
And I really wonder, like, I'm just truly asking, like, is he a super faithful guy? What allows him to lack that fear of dying? Because it's my greatest fear in the world. Like, I am afraid of heights because I am so fearful of death. I know many people do not hold that same fear for a number of different reasons. I do. I wonder what that's like and how he got himself to that place.
He didn't really talk too much about faith or anything like that. I mean, you don't do what he does as a hobby unless you are okay with death. And I think he said as much a couple of times, like, yeah, you know, he's got kids, which was the part for me that it's like, whoa.
Yeah.
His wife was there and she was watching it. And I mean, God bless her, because she was very calm and centered. I mean, you have to be, I guess, if your significant does this as a hobby, but like, she was standing at the top of the building waiting for him. And the part for me, I just couldn't come to the ability to fathom that you do this, was that he's got 2 little kids. But again, he's like, look, this is a hobby. I love doing this. I wouldn't be myself if I didn't do this. So, I mean, you have to be, whether you're faith-based or non-faith-based, you have to be okay with dying if you're doing that as a hobby.
Alongside Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. It's BK and
Punishment
Ferrario
for
here
next
on
year.
101 ESPN. Yeah, we'll just go free climbing.
Yeah.
On like the AT&T building.
Yeah, no. We'll start small. You can free climb here at Hubbard, and I'm sure the company will be okay with it. And then, you know, we'll slowly build up.
Yeah, I'm sure.
In 15 minutes, we'll dive into some NFL quick hitters. But next, is Dalibor Dvorsky finding his game right now? And if so, what do we think this is going to look like over the next 3, 5 to 10 years? We'll talk about it next year on 101 ESPN.
YouTube channel or at 101ESPN.com. 101 ESPN Studio Cams.
Presented by the Air Alliance Team Heating and Cooling. Getting the job done quickly, correctly, 100% of the time.
WXOS HD1 East St. Louis. 101 ESPN is driven by Auto Centers Nissan, home of the lifetime warranty and 30-day return. They are St. Louis. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
Blues will get it out. Dvorsky with Stenberg. Back to Dvorsky. What a play! They score! Sweetness with the passing. And Dvorsky makes it count.
That's what it sounded like over the weekend as Dalibor Dvorsky has now scored in back-to-back games. He has a point in 4 of his last 6 games, and he appears to be coming into his own on the ice. Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. You've got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Alex, Dvorsky's numbers aren't going to jump off the page. He has 9 goals, which is really solid, but only 13 points in 42 games. That means he's on pace this season for about 25 goals this year, or excuse me, about 25 points this season, most of those coming on the power play. What have you seen that has changed in his game, though, over the last few weeks since getting this extended opportunity, especially now that Thomas has been out for a little bit of time?
I've seen the defensive side of his game change. Like, I watched that Kings game, and to me, that was one of the best games I've seen him play this season. Not only because of that goal, but that goal started because of his defense. He wins a board battle in his own end and then rushes up the ice, gets the 2-on-1, creates it himself, and then scores the goal, thanks to Otto Stenberg with the assist. But he matched up. They gave him the duties against the number 1 line for the LA Kings. They put Dvorsky's line out there with Stenberg and Joseph, which I don't know. Some of this is Stenberg because Stenberg's been great, but I don't think Joseph's all this world beater in terms of his defensive play. They matched up against Adrian Kempe and Quentin Byfield, and that's a tough matchup to deal with if you're Dalibor Dvorsky. And he finished that game as a +2, playing almost 18 minutes. So the goals are going to come. Like, you know, he's got that one-time shot. He's got a heavy shot. It's just a matter of, does he take a lot of them, and does he put himself in a position? And frankly, does he have the right wingers that can generate offense with him? Putting up a goal with Matthew Joseph on your line is simply pretty impressive. I'm more impressed by the deployment of him out there to where he's able to play 18 minutes against a top 6 line, but also how he plays defensively. And I think you're starting to see that really turn into an established 200-foot centerman. It's why the Blues drafted him 10th overall. He's never going to be a world beater in points. He's never putting up 80-plus points. But can he be a guy that puts up 50-plus points and also can play 18 minutes a night and be really good defensively? I think that's what the Blues may have had in Dvorsky, and I couldn't help but wondering, it's like, would you consider that a win if you're a Blues fan? Because that was a 10th overall draft pick.
I would call that a win if I'm the Blues.
I would. I think that's exactly what you're hoping for.
Yeah, I'm with BK there. I think that's a win because it's I think asking him to become an elite number 1 center is too much to ask for a guy that was taken 10th overall. I mean, we've talked about this before. I think this is typically, those are the guys that are second, third overall picks, first overall picks. Those are typically the guys that end up being those top centermen. For Dvorsky, if he ends up becoming that, that's a really good number 2 center for you. And I think that would be a win, right? If he can put up points, I mean, those point threshold that you just pointed out there, now take away the defensive side of the puck. But we were talking about this pre-show today. That's kind of what Ryan O'Reilly was or has been in his career. That's kind of what Brock Nelson, for the most part of his career, has been. Now, Nelson's had a 30-goal season. Not sure if that's coming in Dvorsky's game. But if he can settle in as that, as a number 2 center, that would be a huge win. I'm with BK for the St. Louis Blues, especially for a guy who's taken 10th overall.
Yeah, to me, that's exactly the kind of player that you were expecting him to be and hoping that he could ultimately become. I didn't ask for much more than that. A middle 6 center that can get you 20 goals maybe adds a little bit with his passing, and then anything defensively is a plus, and he's been a really solid defender. I wanted to ask you this as a follow-up question, Alex. Who has been more impressive to you this season, Dalibor Dvorsky or Jimmy Snuggerud?
I think I'd still go Jimmy Snuggerud, and it's mostly because I know that offense is going to come, and he scored goals. He's also dealt with that injury this season, but his defensive game has been there since day one, and I think it's continuing to improve. So they're kind of identical. I guess maybe some would give the slight edge to Dalibor Dvorsky because he's a centerman versus a winger, but I think Jimmy Snuggerud plays with a little aggressiveness that Dalibor Dvorsky has, but not to the same degree. But also the playmaking ability of Jimmy Snuggerud is there. Like, I think Snuggerud still has 70-plus point potential in his game, and I don't know if Dvorsky is more than 50 points.
See, it's interesting because I would lean Dvorsky, and I don't know if that's because of preseason expectations or not.
Probably.
Like, this is kind of what I expected from Snuggerud, if I'm being honest. A guy that's going to come in, you're going to see the shot, you're still going to see the potential like you had just brought up there. And I knew he was sound defensively. He makes great defensive plays, but I also saw him do that in the postseason last year. So I kind of had that expectation of this is what it would look like. For Dvorsky, I was expecting the worst, to be completely frank with you, because the Blues said he wasn't ready to be at the NHL level. Now, they didn't need him at the NHL level at the time, but they said, hey, his defensive game is a problem, right? He needs to work on the defensive side of things. And then he gets up here, and I don't think he's really looked out of place defensively at all. No. That's why, I guess based on preseason expectations, I would say I would give the edge to Dalibor Dvorsky as being more impressive so far this year.
That's what I was wondering. I was curious if I'm grading on a curve, and I think I probably am. I think Alex is probably right. The better player this season has almost certainly been Jimmy Snuggerud. But if I'm grading on a curve, and based upon my own expectations coming into the season, I think I've been a little more impressed with Dalibor Dvorsky this year than with Jimmy Snuggerud, because I assumed Snuggy would be, 15 to 20 goal scorer. I didn't see this as likely in the range of outcomes for Dalibor Dvorsky. And right now, I mean, he's on pace for 18 goals this season, Alex. Yeah. That's a really nice year for a guy that's, 20 years old?
Yeah.
It's pretty impressive.
And mostly on the power play, by the way, too. He's become the threat on the power play that I thought Snuggerud was going to become.
And I think those two will be the threats on the power play because both have one-time shots. And the elite power plays, in my opinion, are when you have two threats on both sides of the ice. So that's the other thing, too. I mean, his power play numbers, that's where I think he's going to be heavily influenced, to where there's a chance he could push Brock Nelson's 30 goals in a season. I don't think it's consistent.
Agreed.
But is he a power play threat? Because typically, Wyatt Johnston's a really good example. Now, I don't think Dvorsky's going to get to that level. God. But Wyatt Johnston has 17 goals on the power play. And I think it's 17 of his 28 goals are on the power play. Dalibor Dvorsky can take advantage of the league and have inflated numbers because of that man advantage when they get that unit rolling. So, I mean, don't get me wrong, Dvorsky, that's the part that right now, it sucks to be a Blues fan watching these games, but man, my eyes have been taken away from the actual game itself to watching some of these younger players. Stenberg, Dvorsky, Snuggerud, those three guys don't look out of place. And that's saying something for a team that is really bad this season, that they don't look out of place. Imagine what they'll look like when they get a couple of years of seasoning under their belt and the Blues try and figure out the ish that's happening with the all-around roster.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Blues off tonight, back in action tomorrow against the Dallas Stars. Yet another home game, this one coming against the Stars. We'll see if they are able to come out on the winning side of the ledger. They've lost 4 straight and 7 of their last 9. Coming up in 15 minutes, Dabo Swinney is the perfect messenger for exactly what college football needs. Is it going to matter, though? We'll talk about that in about 15 minutes. NFL Quick Hitters next here on 101 ESPN.
Hey, it's me again, Dr. Pryor. I've missed you, so I spent more money on advertising because I couldn't help but notice that you still haven't made an appointment with me at 100 West Dental. It's quite simple, really. Just type www.100westdental.com into a web browser and schedule a consult.
Tanner Hendrickson here in Super Bowl 60 is coming 2 weeks away, and it deserves a sportsbook built for the moment. As DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of Super Bowl 60, puts you right in the center of the biggest game of the year. It's not too early to start looking ahead. Look, I'm on my DraftKings app right now, and I'm already building my parlay. I'm going to go Seahawks -4.5. I think JSN's going to have another big game, so I'm taking him for 100-plus receiving yards and an anytime touchdown. That is 5-1 odds over there at the DraftKings Sportsbook. And get this, they've got your back here during the Super Bowl because DraftKings has early exit protection. If a player goes down in the first half, you still get paid out in cash immediately once your bet settles. No bonus bets, no waiting. So download that DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code TANNER, that's code TANNER, to turn $5 into $300 in bonus bets if your bet wins. In partnership with DraftKings, the crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER, 21 plus, physically present in Missouri. Eligibility and restrictions apply. Bet must win to receive bonus bets which expire in 7 days. Minimum odds required. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio. Limited time offer.
At Hollywood Casino Amphitheater. Find all the ticket info and enter to win free tickets for Tedeschi Trucks Band and Alabama Shakes right now at 101ESPN.com or on the 101 app, powered by Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers. Giving you the picture, the real big St. Louis sports picture. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
All right, let's dive into some NFL quick hitters alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Guys, what was your biggest takeaway from the championship games that we saw yesterday? If you had to take one, your biggest takeaway from those games was what?
If you guys got one, go for it, because I don't know if I had a big takeaway from the games.
You can win in the playoffs without elite quarterback play. I mean, that would be my big takeaway from watching this year. Really this playoffs.
Yeah, this year.
I think we've seen this in years past at times. I don't think it's been as much to this effect. Like, I saw the corpse of Peyton Manning get carried to a Super Bowl, so I have seen this in the past. But I think it was really evident this playoff run, and especially this weekend. I mean, we talked about it earlier. Drake made nothing. Offense, literally nothing. If you bet 200-plus passing yards like you knew you weren't going to win that very easily about half the time. Their defense was the one that stood out to me, and then you look at the Seahawks. Darnold, like, he's a fine quarterback, and he played very well. JSN was really the guy to me that stood out in that game because he got open consistently, and he was making those corners on the Rams just look silly with his route running ability. So for me, it was you don't necessarily need an elite quarterback. It's ideal, but you don't necessarily need that if you've got great defense and surrounding parts.
This is going to sound like such a weird, big takeaway from the games, and I'm going to say this so BK doesn't have to. I miss having Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs. That was a boring championship week. Now, the Rams-Seahawks was fun.
I was going to say, hold on.
That one was fun, but I think that's the best it's going to look because, my God, is this going to be a boring Super Bowl. So, again, I found myself saying afterwards, man, I miss having an elite quarterback pushing for a Super Bowl. Without Mahomes, without Allen, and even a Lamar Jackson, who I don't think should or will ever find his way there. That was my takeaway because the Seahawks-Rams one was fun, but the Seahawks aren't going to be going up against a team like the Rams in the Super Bowl. So that was mine.
For me, it was, and I know this may sound obvious, in the playoffs, as many games are lost as they are won. And what I mean when I say that is, man, the Rams lost that game when they muffed a punt.
Mm-hmm.
That was it. That was the one mistake that came back to haunt them. The Broncos made a really bad decision to go for it on fourth down, and then their quarterback made a really horrible throw down the stretch at the final drive of that game, trying to pick on the best cornerback in the game. That was it. That was enough. And so this has been the case really all postseason. Like, Josh Allen got overly aggressive at the end of the first half. Otherwise, the Bills, even with that weird call, however you viewed it, probably would have won that game against the Broncos. But they handed the Broncos points prior to the half, and that was enough. So many times, and I think this has always been my biggest frustration with Josh Allen to a degree, but more so like Lamar Jackson, these quarterbacks just have to learn to take what is there. Take what is there from the defense. I thought yesterday we saw both Matthew Stafford and Sam Darnold do an excellent job of that, where they just took whatever was available for them. They were picking the opposing defenses apart. Now, it didn't matter because Stafford ultimately had a special teams that he couldn't overcome. But so many of these games, man, are about not making that critical mistake. And a lot of the time, it's the quarterback that does it. For the Rams, unfortunately, T-Bone, it was the special teams.
God, yeah. we said that, with 5 weeks to go in the regular season, and then the Rams listened and fired the guy?
Yeah, I mean, it was telling. I think it was after the last Seahawks game, if I remember correctly. McVay fired the special teams coordinator. That he knew that was a big issue for them. Now, it wasn't going to get fixed in season. The hope was that you just hoped that it wouldn't come back to bite you. Like, I'm surprised. He muffed a punt earlier in the game, by the way, too. He muffed it, and he got a friendly bounce that came right back to him. I was shocked that McVay sent him back out there for another opportunity. Or if he did, he wasn't going to just tell him, okay, let this ball bounce. We'll take it wherever it lies. That was the big thing for the Rams, was their biggest flaw. We talked about this in the open. The flaws for the teams that have lost in the postseason, we've all known what they are, and they get exposed at the right, at an elite level when you get to the playoffs. The Rams special teams got exposed. The Broncos did not have a running game, and it cost them when the snow started to come down there and when they had to go to their backup quarterback in the championship game.
Yeah, I find it really interesting when you see this stuff happen at this level. I think next week we're going to see with the Patriots, again, 2 weeks really, against the Seahawks in the Super Bowl. I don't anticipate that offense being good enough. I think that they are going to look back and say, all right, well, we knew what our biggest deficiency was. We didn't have the talent around Drake May in order to really beat up on these elite level defenses. I know they've had success winning these games in the postseason. Let me clarify here. When you have a competent offense on the other side, I do not think you will see the same results as we have seen previously by the New England Patriots, where they're coming out on top but doing a whole lot of nothing for the most part offensively. Other question that I wanted to ask you guys as we dive in through some NFL quick hitters. A lot of people bringing up the decision by Sean Payton to go for it on fourth down in that first half. I didn't like it. I'm sure T-Bone, you probably didn't like it either. It came back to haunt them in a big way. I saw this from Peter Schrager, who I think does really good stuff for ESPN. He tweeted out, for years, people who have done actual data and statistical analysis have urged coaches to go for it more often on fourth down. He added, it feels like more games than ever are determined by a field goal or less. New kickoff rules, too. Is the pendulum going to swing next year to just taking the points? I have my personal view on this. I'm curious, do you guys think, given what we have seen this postseason, do you guys think that we will see more coaches get conservative again on fourth down moving forward?
I don't. I think teams are just more aggressive now. It just comes in terms of the time and place of it. But I think right now, teams look at this as if I'm close to midfield and it's fourth and manageable, I'm going for it. There's no point in punting it away anymore. I'll kick it off, or I'll go for it here. Worst case scenario, we just go back on defense and try and get it back. So I think teams are now going to be overly aggressive moving forward.
Yeah, I think we'll still continue to see the aggressiveness. I don't know if that genie that's come out of the bottle is going back in just yet. I think over time we might end up back there. I don't think we're necessarily there just yet, because I think teams value the possessions more than they do the points right now. And I think that's why we're going to continue to see these teams that are going to be aggressive. And just thinking of this off the top of my head, there's more offensive minds across football than there are defensive minds, right? And I think that will also convince them, like Sean Payton, for example, I can scheme up something to gain a yard in this scenario, right, and get this on fourth down. So, no, I don't think we're going to see it just yet.
Yeah, I don't think so at all. I think what we have seen is a real seismic shift in the NFL. You are seeing fewer possessions per game than ever, or at least in recent memory. And the reason why, at least in part, is because of the way the defenses are playing you now. They're keeping the lid on everything. They want you to have to go 10, 12, 14 plays. Think about some of the drives that we saw this weekend. Many of them were really long, extended drives. Like that Patriots drive even. 16 plays, 64 yards, 9.5 minutes to open up the second half against the Broncos and ultimately put them on top 10-7, which held as the game-winning score. I think you're seeing a lot of this because of the way the defenses are playing and because it's easier than ever before to get into field goal range. It only takes a couple of plays now to get yourself into field goal range down the stretch. Those field goals are worth less because of that. So I think you're going to continue to see teams go for it, be hyper aggressive on these fourth down situations. I do think there are spots where you can read the game, you can read the situation. Do I have a quarterback that's capable of making this play? Are we in horrific conditions where nobody has their footing? Do I think this game will end with, the winner getting to 10 points, as Sean Payton should have done yesterday? And maybe in those specific circumstances, you don't go for it. But by and large, I do not think this, as T-Bone said, genie is going back into the bottle.
I also thought that and I'm trying to remember when they went for the field goal in those conditions. Yeah, it was before the end of the second quarter. They went for the field goal in those conditions. I thought that was a crazy decision by Payton as well.
Yeah, he did not have a great coach game yesterday, did Sean Payton.
No.
I think the other one was I don't know where they were at, but the missed field goal late.
What would you have done?
Quarter. I would have gone for it. You were 4th and 6 in New England's 36. I would have gone for it. In those conditions, I would have gone for it. There's 24 seconds left. Worst case scenario, your defense goes back on the field.
I didn't trust
I thought for me, I thought that where they really screwed that one up, they got the ball to the New England 40 and then passed it on the next 3 opportunities. I didn't like the decision to continue throwing there. Wow. There was only 40-something seconds left. I think they should have been a little less aggressive and tried to just get some more yardage to put themselves in a better position to be able to score a field goal. I thought that was the problem more so than kicking.
I get that, but their running game was god-awful in that game, and so I think their best chance to score points was by throwing. You're in a position there where it's like, man, I know you're going for 3 points to take the lead with only 24 seconds left, but in those conditions for how windy it was, I thought you had little to no chance of getting that field goal rather than just go for it on 4th and 6. And I know you failed the 3 other times. I would have taken another shot and then relied on my defense to keep it a tie game. It still remained that way because New England suffered from the same problem. They couldn't kick the field goal, but I thought that was a muffed decision as well.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK, it's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Coming up in 15 minutes, we'll hit the rewind. But next, Dabo Swinney is the perfect messenger for what he said late last week. We did not get to react to this because it happened after our show on Friday. Want to play his comments and discuss whether or not anything can come from this next year on 101 ESPN.
Tanner Hendrickson here, the Sports Center update brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Blues fell to the LA Kings over the weekend. They are off today. They'll be back in action tomorrow night when they host the Dallas Stars. We'll have pregame coverage tomorrow night starting at 6 o'clock with Alex Ferrario. Puck drop at 7 o'clock with Chris Garber and Joey Vitale. And tonight here on 101 ESPN, we've got Big 12 hoops for you as BYU takes on Arizona. We'll have pregame coverage starting at 7:30 with tip-off at 8 o'clock. The Sports Center update was brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, a Daikin heating and air conditioning dealer.
Ian Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
Alex, I wanted to spend some time on a Dabo Swinney comment from Friday. This took place after our show, so we haven't been able to talk about it just yet. Gained a lot of national notoriety. I'll go ahead and just allow Dabo Swinney to take it from here.
There's tampering, and then there's blatant tampering. You know, tampering 101 is when you're talking to kids who aren't in the portal. Tampering 201 is when you've already negotiated the deal with the kids not in the portal. Tampering 301 is when you got a kid who's gone in the portal, signed somewhere, moved there, gone to classes, and you're texting them while they're in class. That's like a whole nother level of tampering, and it's total hypocrisy.
So he went on like a 10 to 20 minute rant about this, Alex, and everything he said is 100% correct. It's all accurate. What is happening right now in college football is insanity. He said he had a player that he had recruited from the portal that committed to Clemson, signed with them, reached campus, was going to classes, and then Ole Miss reaches out and says, hey, what's your buyout? And they paid the buyout, and he decided to go to Ole Miss. Like, it was a done deal. He was going to be going to Clemson, and changed his mind not only after he had decided to commit, after he had signed the dotted line, had a contract in place, everything was ready to go, he's in classes, and decides instead to go to Ole Miss. That's obviously crazy. That would be like in the NHL if you had signed a contract on July 1st, and then on July 2nd, another team comes in with a new contract and says, actually, we're buying you out of that old one. That's not how any of this is supposed to work. Here's the problem, Alex. There is no way to penalize these people for doing so.
Mm-hmm.
He can say it all he wants to, and he can be 100% correct about it. And we can all agree with Dabo Swinney that what's happening right now in the transfer portal is crazy. But until there are real legitimate guardrails from somebody with real legitimate power and oversight, none of that much matters. And that's where we're at right now with college football. The on-field product is spectacular. The dispersion of talent is more and better than it has ever been in the history of this sport, so much so that we can have Indiana going to and winning the national championship game. That's amazing. But they have got to figure this stuff out, and I don't have any answers. I agree with Dabo Swinney's criticisms. I do not know how you resolve that.
Yeah, that was my thing hearing it. It's like, Dabo, more power to you, man. I agree with what you're saying. But you sitting here yelling in cameras saying that this shouldn't be happening isn't going to make a change. People have been trying to do it for the last few years, and it's not working. It sounds awful to say, but Dabo, man, if you don't like it, you're going to have to start trying what they're trying and cheat a little bit. Because the NCAA, I've said this before, is a wild, wild west. There's no laws. There's no regulations. It's just do what you want, and they'll probably try and sue the NCAA at some point, and you'll fail. But this is where we're at in college athletics. So as much as I don't like it, Dabo, and I know you hate it, you're going to have to adapt to it, or you're going to be left upstream without a paddle. You're not going to acquire any talent through the portal because all you're doing is whining about how, well, these guys keep cheating and taking our prospects and they're in class. That's great, but they're winning because they're getting those guys and you aren't. So until NCAA decides to actually make changes and enforce the rules, this is where you're at. And if you continue to just whine about it, it's not going to benefit you at all.
Yeah, with Dabo's comments, I'm 100% with him. The problem, though, is there's more people that want to play this way. especially without the guardrails, right? So you're going to get the programs like the Ole Miss, the Missouris, the Georgias, Alabamas. They're all going to decide to play this way because it's just basically free agent, and it's not free agency's not over until practices start in the fall, right? Like this is the tough part about it. There should be rules in place. In theory, you would have better guardrails. But there's no one that's taking the reign as taking in charge, and no one really wants to put somebody in charge and say, you know what, we will enforce this, because there is, I can't remember what it's called, but there is supposedly someone that's supposed to be an overseeing body that oversees NIL deals and kind of keeps track of this stuff and can hand out penalties, but no one's really viewing them seriously, right? I mean, it's just they keep getting handed some stuff, but they don't have enough people to sort through it all, and no one really wants to say they've got power. The conferences would rather have the power than hand it to them.
That's the thing. Every bit as importantly, the NCAA doesn't have actual oversight here. Like, that's the NIL stuff. You're right, T-Bone. There are people that oversee some of that stuff, but there's nobody overseeing the players and who is tampering with them. That doesn't exist. And even when they do, even if all of this is 100% correct and the allegations are found to be true, it's such a low-level violation that the coaches that are found to be guilty of it are suspended for, like, a game.
Yeah.
So they go up against, Ferris State, and that's the game that they ultimately miss, because most of these teams end up playing these crap teams early in the season anyways. So whatever. If I get suspended for a game, my defensive coordinator will take the reins, and I'll be back for week 2. There's just no real way to go about legislating any of this stuff. The only way you could really do it is if these negotiations and these contracts were binding. And the only way to really do that is if you have some sort of collective bargaining. And I don't know how anybody ends up coming to the table. I don't even know who the two sides would be. The players are one. I don't know why they would come to the table to do this, but let's just operate that way. Who are they bargaining with? Is it the conferences? Is it the NCAA? Is it something that we don't currently have as an oversight committee? I don't know, but that's where we're at. It's obviously not going well, but there's really no clear path toward a solution. I know we answered this question briefly earlier today. The transfer portal is basically over. You cannot enter it anymore, and most of the top players have committed somewhere at this point in time. Missouri shopping has gone decent. I'll get more into that here in just a minute. Illinois shopping has mostly been a disaster. They're like 60th in transfer portal team recruiting class rankings, according to 24/7 Sports.
You didn't have to bring them up.
No, he did. Nailed it.
Yeah. I think it's reasonable.
Yeah. Sorry.
I know there were a lot of Mizzou fans that were kind of peeing down their pants when we were early in the transfer portal season and they were missing on a bunch of different guys. I don't really feel that way any longer. I think it was a decent but not great portal class for them. And ultimately, it's going to come down to, did they get the right quarterback? Were they right in their evaluation of Austin Simmons? Because if they were, I think they've put enough talent around him this offseason, Alex, to be able to have a pretty darn good team. Caden Lee committed over the weekend. He's a wide receiver that played a lot of snaps for Ole Miss this past year. Their offense was pretty darn good. They got a starting corner from Ole Miss who was good enough to take them to the college football playoff semifinals. They added a few defenders from Miami as well. They added the talent that's necessary. I wish they would have had one more elite level edge rusher. Couldn't find them. Other than that, though, I think they had a pretty good portal class, Alex.
Yeah, I'm with you. Like, this, to me, Mizzou season comes down to, did you get it right with the quarterback? Because they're opting to go a different direction versus being elite defensively when you lost Wilson this portal season. You lose an elite talent there. You lose a couple of others going into the draft. So now you have to zig while everyone's zagging. And you got to go out there and make yourself a better offensive team. You've brought in the coordinator. You've brought in the mindset that can help the quarterback. Did you get the quarterback right? You've got Ahmad Hardy. You've upgraded the wide receiver position. Now you just have to click on the quarterback. Because if you do, well, now you got an offense that can compete in the SEC. And your defense, although it's taken a step back, you still have added some pretty significant pieces that can make it manageable, but it's going to be all about your offense. And if you get it wrong with the quarterback, then we're going to be saying the same thing, BK, of, well, Eli Drinkwitz still has not found that quarterback can raise their level.
Yeah, I think they've done a pretty good job of raising or at least sustaining what their floor was at the end of this season. And the reason I say that is because you mentioned the quarterback spot. With bad quarterback play this year, look at where they were, right? They couldn't beat anybody that was great.
And elite defense.
Yeah, but they took care of business against the teams that you're expected to beat in conference play. I think a lot of that was, okay, our floor is set here without the quarterback. Can we get to that next level with Austin Simmons? We'll see. We'll see if they end up getting that play right. Good thing they kind of tampered and got him a little early. But I think that is the biggest question for them is, can they get that elite quarterback play? Because if you do, that's how you start to raise the ceiling along with the floor as well.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK, it's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. It's 1:45. Your time check brought to you by Clarkson Jewelers, an officially licensed Rolex jeweler. Coming up next, we'll hit the rewind here on BK and Ferrario.
Got to score a signed puck autographed by Blues forward Alexei Toropchenko.
Toropchenko drives the middle of the ice, shoots it up, he scores! Alexei Toropchenko!
Enter to win that Alexei Toropchenko signed puck right now at 101ESPN.com or on your 101 app powered by Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers. This This is exactly where you want to be listening to us. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. Let's run it back with a daily rewind on BK and Ferrario. Brought to you by Gloria Lou, your home sold guaranteed realty. Selling your home begins at GloriaHasTheBuyers.com.
Hey, if you guys missed anything from today's show, be sure to check it out on the podcast page, 101ESPN.com, and the free 101 ESPN app is where you go to find it. It's all sponsored by
Schaefer Door Company.
That 101 ESPN app is free to use. It is super easy to download. It is sponsored by Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers. Appreciate all of you tuning in today. I'm sure many of you were working from home, as I am today. Little man home because there is no school today. Alex started out the show from home and then immediately had to drive his way into work and get back into the office.
Thanks a lot.
Hopefully you didn't have to go Alex's route today.
Yeah. Well, my route started fine and then ended up on the side of the road for 10 seconds. But, shout out to the internet provider that takes care of the Ferrario household because they, just collapsed in the middle of, for no reason at all. It's fine. We'll move forward.
Why don't we take some responsibility ourselves?
I don't know how I'm supposed to take responsibility, man. I was connected. Everything was tested. And then all of a sudden, oh, hey, we lost internet access. No reasoning why. They're even saying there's no outage in my area. Well, my house begs to differ.
All right, Alex. Over the weekend, we did see the Blues get a point. They did lose, however, back-to-back games, Friday and Saturday night. I thought Saturday might have been Jordan Kyrou's best game of the season. What did you take away from the Blues this weekend?
Yeah, I mean, it was Kyrou's best game. I mean, that guy was flying. He's playing probably the fastest I've seen him in 3 years, and he's making plays happen. All of that being said, I think that's why it's most frustrating with Jordan Kyrou, and fans are frustrated because you see it in spurts. And it's hard for me to believe that just all of a sudden in the middle of January, when the Blues have been the worst team in the NHL, it just finally clicked for them. Maybe it did, but that's the frustrating part for this Blues team because even Pavel Buchnevich, he's had like 4 back-to-back games that have been really impressive. But all of it doesn't matter because they've been inconsistent all season. The team has played well for 3 straight. They've lost in all of them. Kind of goes with how this season has gone. But where they're at right now, it doesn't even matter if these guys are playing well. I think the Blues have made up their mind. Core needs to be changed. It's just a matter of when, not if, they make those moves.
A better performance on Saturday came from the Illinois Fighting Illini. I'm ready to start talking about them as a potential #1 seed this year. They have 3 losses on the season. They came against Alabama, UConn, and Nebraska, all 3 of which are top 20 teams in the country. And now they go on the road, get a quad 1 win against a top 10 opponent in Purdue. They do so behind Keaton Wagler, 40-plus points, did so as a freshman. T-Bone, you're an Illini fan. What'd you take away from their win over the weekend at Purdue?
Yeah, I think I'm with you. I think I'm ready to talk about them as a 1 seed and potential team that can get to the Final Four, if not potentially win it all this year. They're just so deep. And I'm saying that, and they were down one of their best guards going into this game as Boswell was out, and he's out until mid-February with a broken hand. They looked unstoppable, and that was with only one guy doing all the production in Wagler, right? They can do it in all different kinds of ways. They can shoot the 3-ball well. They can go fast if necessary. They like to play slow. They can get to the basket. They've got bigs that can shoot it. They can play physical with Mirkovic if he decides to go down low. And then the bench gets some good production from Hummerkahouse and Isevic's brother. So, they are built deep 1 through 8 when they get Boswell back. They are the kind of team that can end up going on a deep tournament run. I'm expecting that for them. I think if they don't get to the Elite Eight, it would be a disappointing season.
I saw this earlier today from The Athletic. SLU is now #1 in the country in effective field goal percentage, both as an offense and a defense. That has never happened in the history of KenPom, which goes back more than 25 years. Right now, one of the most dominant teams that we've seen on both sides of the ball in the last 20-plus seasons, at least when it comes to effective field goal rate. They were awesome once again on Friday night, taking down the Bonnies 97-62. They are a wagon, and tomorrow night they will be taking on George Washington, one of their biggest games remaining on their schedule. We'll talk about that one tomorrow. Mizzou gets exactly the kind of win that they needed. It wasn't pretty, but they got a win after 2 buzzer beaters. One to get it to overtime, another to win in overtime against Oklahoma. All that matters is that they got the win. We don't have to spend any more time on it than that because they won, and that is the most important thing. Last thing here, Super Bowl, of course, is now set. Seahawks will be taking on the New England Patriots, a matchup that we saw just about 10 years ago. Alex, we'll have 2 weeks to talk about this thing. Do you have an early lean one way or the other between these two teams?
Yeah, and I'll put it down in permanent marker. It's not going to change my mind. The Seahawks are going to win the Super Bowl. I think you saw the Super Bowl last night. Seahawks and Rams was better than what we're going to see with the Seahawks and Patriots, and I've praised the Patriots this season. I think Drake May should be the MVP of the league for how he has performed, but that team does not look like a team that is built to win a Super Bowl. Seahawks look like a team that's built to win a Super Bowl.
Yeah, I'm with Alex. I'll be going Seahawks all the way. Probably not going to change that in the 2 weeks leading up to it.
And I'll take the points, the Seahawks too, whatever it is.
I've seen what Drake May looks like against two good defenses in the playoffs so far, and he did not play well against Houston. He did not play well against Denver. I expect Seattle is going to make it very hard on him and that New England offense, and I think they're going to win this game easily. They're peaking while New England's just kind of floating in the wind right now. They're not playing their best football.
It's a 4.5-point spread. The over-under is set at 45.5. I think I would take Seattle minus the 4.5 points. I also think I would probably go under on the 45.5 total for this game. We will spend the next couple of weeks, though, breaking that all down for you. Appreciate you guys tuning in. He is Alex Ferrario. That is Theodore Hendrickson, and I am Brandon Kiley. If you guys missed any of today's show, be sure to check it out on the podcast page, 101ESPN.com, or you can always see it on YouTube as well at youtube.com/101ESPN STL. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow at 11 a.m. The Fast Lane is next here on 101 ESPN.